To- I'm calling to order the meeting of February 9th of the Wheat Ridge City Council. Silence, please. We're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Will the clerk please call roll?
Jerry DiTullio,
Here.
Bud Starker,
Present.
Zachary Urban,
Present.
Christy Davis,
Here.
Tim Fitzgerald,
Here.
George Pond,
Present.
Tracy Langworthy, Genevieve Wooden.
Present.
Madam Mayor, we have a quorum.
Thank you. I see the approval of the minutes will be submitted at a later date, so we won't approve them tonight.
No,
Okay?
they were sent out. You're welcome to approve them. I just didn't have the text available when she sent out the,
Okay, we will approve them as they've been sent out. If there are changes, we can go ahead and make those changes at a later time.
yeah.
Okay? Let's move on with proclamations and.
Oh, well, are you declaring them approved
I'm
as
declaring
published?
them approved, and changes will be available if needed later.
Okay.
I don't believe we have proclamations and ceremonies tonight. We're going to move right into citizens' right to speak. You're saying you can't hear me? I'll try to speak more into the microphone. This is where citizens can speak on any matter that's not on the roster tonight on the agenda. And we're going to start with, I believe we have a school group. Nope. Thank you.
Presentation from Wheat Ridge High School students. You want to come on up? These students are working on a special project, and we wanted to give them an opportunity to let the public know what they're doing. It's kind of a neat, unique thing. They haven't done it before, and they're going to give you a presentation.
So we'd like to thank you for having us, and my name is Andrew Miller. I am a junior at Wheat Ridge High School, and I am our steering group's leader.
I am Nicole Ortega. I am a junior at Wheat Ridge, and I am one of the drivers and also part of the steering.
I am Ian Clark. I am a freshman at Wheat Ridge High School, and I am part of the body.
I am Harley Bradford. I am a sophomore at Wheat Ridge High School, and I work with the gears.
So we are students that are part of the STEM engineering program that's brand new this year at Wheat Ridge High School. So first we'd like to show you a quick video that's kind of been made about our program. Oh, whoops.
Welcome to the future of automotive design, as envisioned by these STEM engineering students at Wheat Ridge High. They give up their weekends so they can work on their supercar.
We are
entering the Shell Eco Marathon. They have a couple different categories of cars that students from high schools and colleges make. We are making a hydrogen fuel cell car, so that's in the prototype section.
It's an ambitious project for any high school, but these students aren't without help. Their teacher, Chuck Sprague, has developed a partnership with the University of Colorado at Denver, which has a lot of eco-marathon expertise as a past eco-marathon entrant.
What we started out with is we started out with design. So all the kids in our program, they get to learn solid modeling techniques. So they were developing the car structure and the frame via the computer.
From there, he was on to creating molds, milling them, and smoothing them down for the next step, laying down milling them and smoothing them down for the next step, laying down carbon fiber for the supercar's body.
A lot of work goes into it. I didn't realize exactly how much work until we actually started doing it. We have to cut all the foam, and then we have to put it on 2x4s so that way we can run it through the mill. It's got to go through the mill, and once it goes through the mill, we have to do what we're doing now and sand and put Bondo in places. And so it's a lot of work, and it takes a lot of hands. The more hands we have, the better it works.
Nicole Ortega will be driving the Wheat Ridge Supercar when the competition begins in Detroit this April. And there's a lot to be done between now and then.
I'm a little worried, but it's probably not that big of a deal because once we get our car going, we'll have a month to do test runs around here around the school, which will be easier, and I'll be able to learn and figure out boosting and coasting and all of that good stuff.
They have UCD's Eco Marathon car from last year to help them visualize their design. And while it's a bit worse for wear, it's been invaluable, along with advice from UCD professors who pass on wisdom and encouragement.
We have a lot of people kind of helping us out and guiding us, even though we are doing most of the work. And so I think between everyone that's guiding us and everything that all the skill sets that we have on the team, I think we could do really well at the competition.
Most of these students are now considering engineering as a career, in part because of their work with drafting, computer-aided design, and manufacturing.
So that to us is a win. If they go out on the track and win, that's even better.
So this is a picture of our team, and it's a pretty large team, and we are really excited about. This team stretches from freshmen to seniors, and everybody in the class gets to work and help make the car. So that video was made by Jack Meyer, a partner with Jefferson Public County Schools, who kind of runs their YouTube channel and spreads word about cool things that the county has going on. So the competition we're entering in is the Shell Eco Marathon. It is a worldwide competition that Shell offers that is a fuel efficiency competition where groups can come build cars and run it under different powers to do their best to make it the most fuel efficient and under the amount of time and in the course. So we are connected with CU Denver. We have a professor and instructor that come out and help mentor us and guide us so that way while we're working, we aren't totally lost. So any dips we get into, we can get help for. They are just mentoring us. They do not do any work for us, so we are doing all the work. And they also bring to us some other experts that can help teach us and guide us as well. Like we have an electrical expert that comes in and helps guide the students working in that area to understand what they're working with better. And then we have past drivers and students that they have had that will come in and mentor us on how to lay the carbon fiber and everything else that we need to do for the car.
All right, so a lot of that goes into this process is we kind of started with, we grouped up and we came up with ideas of everything that we wanted, whether it was big, whether it was small. We just brainstormed everything we could possibly think of because there's kind of no better way to start than to think about everything that we can do. So this is us just getting some work with our mentors, one of the professors at UCD here. These were some of our initial designs for the car. This was one of the first couple days when we had dimensions of the car, how long it needed to be, height, length, width, and all of that good stuff. Here, we had to take in consideration our length and width of our drivers, and so we did have to be measured. I know they did take a big sheet of paper and trace us and then use that to measure us to make sure the car was long enough and wide enough. So that had to be taken into consideration. Here, this was one of our crucial pictures because we made a rough mock-up of our car of what the dimensions and everything will look like, it all put together. One thing we found when we put one of the drivers in the car was that the steering wheel would not be able to hold up because of our hands that were right there. There was no room for the steering wheel to go. So this was a big part in changing our design and figuring things out because this showed us that we had to rethink everything.
So the next part of building the car is building the mold. So we get a large sheet of foam and cut it into blocks, and we loosely put together the mold, and then later we will glue the blocks together to make the mold that we will eventually take to a machine shop to mill. And at the machine shop, the professor we work with, his program that he uses, he taught us how to use it and how to not mess up the mold or mess up the machine. And then this is the final molds that we have put carbon fiber in, and
So once the molds are all milled out and everything, we have to go back through and we have to put resin and wax and everything and prep the molds for what we are doing in this picture. Here we are actually laying the carbon fiber, so it's mixed with an epoxy, and from there we lay it into the mold, and we have to do 4 layers, 2 for the top and 4 for the bottom. This is some of our honeycomb skeleton. So this is what supports the bottom of the car. As you can see on the left is in between the layers of carbon fiber. So once it has been laid in, then carbon fiber will go back over it, and that way when it dries and hardens, it'll be good. These are our final mills, or final molds of the carbon fiber. This is of the bottom.
Finally, we are looking for sponsors to help fund us. It costs a lot for the supplies and fares to travel. And we have multiple levels of sponsorship, the bronze, silver, and gold. And if you get gold, if you sponsor us with $1,000 or more, we'll put your acknowledgement on the team website and a large logo on the car. If you have a silver sponsorship, which is $500 to $1,000, you'll get a team acknowledgement on the website and a logo on the car. And the bronze level, you'll just get an acknowledgement on the website. Finally, to contact us, you can look on Wheat Ridge High School website, and there's a direct link to the STEM website. And you may also look under the teacher directory for Chuck Sprague and go from there. Thank you.
Wheat Ridge City Council members each have some funds that are called community enrichment, community engagement funds. And members of the council have banded together, and we'd like to give you a donation of $2,250. And thank you. And this donation is $1,000 is from Jerry DiTullio, who is a teacher at Wheat Ridge High School, and the other $1,250 is from the rest of the council members. And we'll get that check to you by the end of the month. Thank you. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, guys. Our city is very, very proud of you. Your whole team. I think I counted about 20 of them on that team. Thank you again. Okay, it looks like we have signed up for other people to speak. These are items that are not on tonight's agenda. Please come forward. I saw your names on here. And please line up, too. Since we have a lot of people to speak tonight, I'll be asking you to line up so that you're ready. Name, address, please.
Kim Calamino, 4070 Dover Street. And I just want to tell the students wherever they went how proud I am of them. I'm a Wheat Ridge High School graduate myself. We didn't do anything quite that exciting, or at least I didn't in those days. I'm thrilled to see the partnership between CU and high school. Those kinds of partnerships are critical as we look at STEM in particular and the needs that we have in this country moving forward. So good luck to you. Good luck, Michelle, the driver. Go Farmers. So, good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. Speaking of partnerships, I'm here to thank you for your partnership with Wheat Ridge 2020 and your continued funding for that organization. And in particular, I want to thank you for your investment for $40,000 that has provided the opportunity to create dozens of events that help build community and support local businesses here in Wheat Ridge. In January, over 75 Live Local Dines participants dined at Iron Rail Tavern. I'm sorry, Iron Rail Tavern. It's a great place. If you haven't visited there, I encourage you all to do that. Right now, we're in the midst of the Food and Film series at the Active Adult Center. And just so you know, and the public know what that is, on the last Wednesday of each month, January through March, we gather for a community potluck and watch a film about agriculture, which of course is part of our heritage here in Wheat Ridge. Last month, the movie was Queen of the Sun, that spoke to the importance of bees to our environment and to agriculture. Local Wheat Ridge farmer and beekeeper Chris McCune of Roost Farms told stories of his own adventures in beekeeping and why he feels it's so important to make the organic honey that he sells from his farm here in Wheat Ridge off of 32nd Avenue and Upham. For anyone who is interested in Live Local events like these and many more, I encourage you to go to the website wheatridge2020.org, sign up to be a member, or simply like the Live Local Wheat Ridge Facebook page. And you can also find a list of the many things that we accomplished in 2014 if you look for our annual report. Thank you, and thank you for your support.
Thank you.
Hello, I'm Esther Valdez, principal at Color Strand Elementary. And I appreciate the opportunity to come speak to you. And as you can see by the room full of people, there are many factors that influence the success of a city. At the foundation of that is our schools. And as political and financial issues come up in our city, I want us to keep remembering the value and importance of supporting our local public schools, all school choice. But I wanted to come talk to you about Color Strand. Color Strand Elementary is on 38th Avenue, just east off of Youngfield. It's a little gem of a school, a neighborhood school of about 225 students, a very friendly, home, family-oriented community. Our school growth exceeds and meets state guidelines as compared by TCAP scores. We have partnerships with various environmental institutes, such as Environmental Solutions. So our kids partner with scientists, and this past year have really been working on the green belt and reviving the green belt, planting trees, teaching our kids the value of the richness of Wheat Ridge. We have many accelerated programs, advanced learning plans, individualized learning. We have acceleration opportunities. Because of our small community, we're able to flex groups and accelerate kids as needed for their academics. We believe strongly in our academic success, but we know that a well-rounded, balanced education and teaching the whole child. And so our programs are reflected in that. We take care of emotional, social needs of our students and families, and we provide lots of wraparound services for families as needed. Rather than families having to go to different agencies to seek resources, we try to provide a variety of outlets and supports for our families in the community. Color Strand is an older school, older building, but that brings charm and history to our culture as well. We take great pride, and so I'd like to just continue to invite Wheat Ridge community to come visit Color Strand. We are always seeking volunteers. If you don't have children, you can come adopt a few Color Strand kids and volunteer your support and services. You're always welcome. We invite the mayor and the city council members, community partnerships. So I do have some brochures and flyers that I'd like to leave at the back table on your way out if you'd like to take one. We invite you to come visit, and then I take great pride in being the principal at Color Strand Elementary, and I invite you to come visit us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Esther. Okay. I'm going to remind that since we have so many people that will be speaking tonight, we're particularly going to be watching the 3 minutes. And also, we enjoy the applause, but we'll also have to be very careful about that just because of the time element, boos, applause, et cetera, being respectful for us up here as well as our respect for you out there as we do conduct a business meeting. Our next speaker, please.
Good evening. My name is Rachel Hulteen, and I live at 4690 Balsam Street. And I'm fresh from the Bicycle Colorado annual summit on creating a more bike-friendly Colorado. And I'm really proud to say that we had 7 members from Wheat Ridge who were there representing. And we just learned a lot about innovative ways to bring city and community members together for a more vibrant, bikeable Wheat Ridge. Very exciting. But the reason I'm here tonight is to just express my unbridled enthusiasm for the upcoming Wheaties Academy. I'm really excited that we had more applicants than we had spaces for in this innovative Grassroots Leadership Academy that starts on February 19th. We were really excited to be able to accept 16 community members that are across geographies and across generations within our community. And this was made possible through the really nimble support of Wheat Ridge 2020 to recognize an opportunity to build grassroots leadership within our community. And when we look in this room and we see people here tonight, we all recognize that investing in grassroots initiatives within our community helps make everybody thrive. I'd just like to take a second and read the names of our Academy participants because we're really excited. Phyllis Hebb, Stephanie Meadows, Joe and Mary DeAguero, Jenny Snell, Elise Hauer, Lucy Kiwimaji, Kathleen Martell, Chris McCune, second time his name's been mentioned tonight, Brittany Fitzsimmons, Jeremy Schwartz, Rhiannon Gallagher, Adam Wiley, Leah Dozman, Lee Recca, and Kaya Riaz. And collectively, these 16 people represent the passion for where we live and a lot of enthusiasm and vision for how we can work together. As we move forward, we will be doing a lot of storytelling around the Academy and inviting all members of our community to support the various projects and initiatives that we'll be working on. Those projects are made possible through the generous donations of several council people who contributed their outreach funds for Project Seed money. So as we move forward this year, we invite you guys to think about how you can support the Academy and the participants. And we're just really grateful that Wheat Ridge is a place where people can come together quickly and figure out how we can work together to turn ideas into action from the ground up. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Next speaker, please.
Good evening. My name is Britta Fisher, Fisher. I reside in District 1, and I'm also the Executive Director of Wheat Ridge 2020. We already heard from a couple of our volunteers tonight who spoke to a couple of our programs. I just wanted to say two other things. One, we have Wheat Ridge Dines coming up this week. That's the once-a-month event that Kim also referred to. It's going to be at Abruzzi's on Thursday night from 5 to 7, and they're going to do a cooking demonstration on how to cook with essential oil. So if that sounds interesting to you, please join us. There's nothing yet that you need to do other than show up and enjoy with us. The second thing I wanted to do was really remind everyone about something that's very important. I hear that over 80% of Valentine's Day shopping occurs the week before Valentine's Day. So I would like to take this opportunity to remind you all to visit a local store and shop here in Wheat Ridge. We've got lots of places that sell gifts, flowers, jewelry, candy. Please do shop here in Wheat Ridge and support your local businesses. Thank you.
Good evening, Council. My name is John Clark. They say I reside in District 4, but I'll tell you my address, 4665 Swadley Street. And I won't take up a bunch of time, but I will say how proud I am also of the Wheat Ridge STEM crew. I got a little inside track over there, and I can tell you how hard they work. I'm sorry. They're putting in Saturdays, and it's not just an after-school club. It's, you know, they were over there 14 hours last Saturday, so they're doing great work. The only thing I wanted to bring up was to thank council and the mayor for last Monday for holding the legislative forum and bringing in Sherry John. The one thing that kind of perplexed me was, well, it didn't really perplex me, but it kind of caught me, and it was the alcohol. When Chief Dan Brennan brought up alcohol, Sherry really wasn't too much aware of it, but there is a House Bill 1031 coming up through the state to ban that, and the police chief supported the ban and made his feelings apparent. And I would just like to make sure that council is aware, hopefully, that what this product is, and maybe we can stay one step in front of this product. I think we kind of got caught off guard with the medical edibles. So hopefully we can stay on top of this. I'm sure you all read the Wheat Ridge transcript. There was an article in it about the state rep looks to ban powdered alcohol, and I looked at that and I read it, and I had to read it about 3 times, and I just wanted to read a couple little paragraphs and see if this brings any deja vu to you guys like it did to me. The creator of alcohol, Mark Phillips, stated in a YouTube video that public fears over the misuse of product are false and urges the public to make up its own mind versus getting caught up in the hysteria. Powdered alcohol is a revolutionary new product that has so many positive uses, Phillips told Colorado Community Media. Banning it will do more harm than good. We know prohibition doesn't work. And this is where it started kind of going back a couple years and the deja vu was hitting. He said, some airlines have expressed interest in the product as well, said Phillips, who is also in favor of states taxing and regulating the product. And it's really starting to kick. And banning powdered alcohol will create a black market for it, and the state will lose all control of how it will be distributed, he said. So I just want you to be aware of what it is. I've educated myself all the kids know what it is. A couple of the teachers didn't know what it was when it was brought up, but all the kids know what it is. So again, thank you for the legislative forum. Appreciate it.
Thank you, John. Other speakers, we have a couple more signed up. These are on items not on the agenda. Thank you, Larry. Any other speakers? Okay. I think we can move on to our regular meeting. Well, starting with the approval of the agenda, are there any changes to tonight's agenda? Let's move on to item number 1, which is the consent agenda. Councilmember Pond.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm happy to present the consent agenda tonight, which consists of items 1A, motion to approve $179,172 to payment to Jefferson County for the reimbursement of funding for the Foothills Animal Shelter. Resolution number 09-2015, amending the fiscal year 2015 budget to reflect the approval of a supplemental budget appropriation for the reappropriation and re-encumbrance of 2014 fiscal year encumbered funds in the amount of $2,318,521.48. C, resolution number 10-2015, approving an amendment to the intergovernmental agreement with the Colorado Department of Transportation for the Kipling Street multi-use trail from 32nd to 44th Avenues. And D, motion to approve an increase in rates for the legal services provided by the Murray Dahl, Kuchenmeister and Renaud law firm beginning February 1, 2015. Is a motion in order?
Motion is in order, please.
I'd like to pull 1A.
Item 1A has been pulled by Mr. DiTullio.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I offer a motion to approve the consent agenda items 1B, C, and D.
Second.
Please poll the council.
Motion carries 8-0.
Item 1A, please.
Madam Mayor, I'll be quick. I had a chance to watch the city council meeting and the study session where this was discussed because I'd asked to be pulled. And while I understand the logistics of it, I still can't support this item right now. So if somebody wanted to make a motion to approve it, I'll be voting no tonight.
Okay, may I have a motion then? Mr. Pond, can you give us that one?
Thank you. I move to approve $179,172 payment to Jefferson County for the reimbursement of funding for the Foothills Animal Shelter facility.
Second.
Item's been. Do we have any discussion now on this particular item? Nope. Please poll the council.
Motion carries 7-1 with Councilmember DiTullio voting no.
Madam Mayor, we're still having some folks this evening who can't hear, so if you speak directly into your mics,
into your mics, okay.
and loudly, I think it works pretty well, so
right.
Please speak into your mics.
Thank you for telling us that. Let's move on to item number 2, which will be read by Councilmember Urban.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move to approve, well, let's start up with the introduction here. At issue, should I read the title or just go to the issue?
Read the title, please.
Council Bill number 01-2015, an ordinance approving the rezoning of property located at 4295 Harlan Street from restricted commercial to mixed-use neighborhood. MU-N, case number WZ-14-11-Kaplan. At issue, the applicant is requesting approval of a zone change from restricted commercial to mixed-use neighborhood for the property located at 4295 Harlan Street. The proposed rezoning includes one parcel, which is approximately 0.21 acres. The purpose of the zone change is to expand the possible uses for the property, including the option of converting the existing structure back to residential occupancy. At this time, the applicant is not proposing any new development or modifications to the site if the property is redeveloped in the future under the proposed MU-N zoning. An administrative site plan review would be required to confirm that the proposed development meets the standards of the mixed-use zone district.
Thank you. This is, if I could have the ordinance number, then I will open the public hearing.
This will be ordinance number 1564.
Thank you. I'm opening a public hearing. Do we have any staff to discuss this tonight?
No presentation this evening. Be glad to answer questions.
Okay. Do we have an applicant here? Okay, we do have someone. Item number 2. Okay, since you wish to testify, I will need to swear you in, and I might as well swear you in as well, Ken. Mr. Johnson, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth in these matters? If so, say I do. I do. Thank you. Sir, do you want to come up here and use the microphone?
Benjamin Kaplan, owner of 4295 Harlan Street in Wheat Ridge. Thank you for hearing us this evening. Thanks everybody for coming out in support of us. We really appreciate it.
Spell your last name, please.
Kaplan. It's my understanding
Did you give
that
your address? You did, yes, thank you.
it's my understanding that through the zoning commission that everything based on our rezone has been gone through and presented. Just from a personal standpoint, last April, Roxy and I fell in love with a house on Harlan Street, and I'm sure many of you know how hard it is to find a home in this tricky real estate market. And after we fell in love with it, we learned that it was zoned as such that we couldn't live in it, so we were met with a little bit of frustration. But we purchased it on a leap of faith last September and have been working with the city of Wheat Ridge since to get it rezoned. And I believe this is the final step. For those of you who don't know the property, it's a 1950s ranch. It was built very much as a home. And I believe 6 or 7 years ago, the owners rezoned it to turn it into a day spa, not really changing the structure itself. So our hope is just to have it rezoned to mixed use so that we can live there and make it our home.
Thank you. Are there any questions of the applicant or staff at this time?
I move to.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
I need to close the public hearing.
Go ahead. I move to approve Council Bill 01-2015, an ordinance approving the rezoning of property located at 4295 Harlan Street from restricted commercial to mixed-use neighborhood on second reading, that it take effect 15 days after final publication for the following reasons. The City Council has conducted a proper public hearing, all public notice requirements as required by Section 26-109 of the Code of Laws. The requested rezoning has been reviewed by the Planning Commission, which has forwarded its recommendation. The requested rezoning has been found to comply with the criteria for review in Section 26-112-E of the Code of Laws.
Is there a second?
Second.
Oops. We have 2 seconds, one by Ms. Wooden, Councilmember Davis as well. Any discussion? What?
Just use the mic.
Oh, I'm not using, I gotta use the mic. No discussion, please poll the council.
Motion carries 8-0.
That was a tough fight, wasn't it? Okay. We might as well enjoy ourselves here. Let's move on to item number 3, and the levity will stop at that moment. Item number 3, and do we have a few, resolution number 07-2015. Councilmember Davis, please.
Resolution number 07-2015, a resolution approving a First Amendment to the Wadsworth Boulevard Corridor redevelopment plan to allow for the utilization of tax increment financing for the proposed project at the southwest corner of 38th and Wadsworth, continued from January 26, 2015 council meeting. At issue, Renewal Wheat Ridge received a tax increment financing application from Quadrant Development, QDP, for the redevelopment of commercial property at the southwest corner of Wadsworth Boulevard and 38th. The proposed project is located in the Wadsworth Boulevard Corridor Redevelopment Plan, the Plan Area Attachment 1. The plan authorized Renewal Wheat Ridge to use TIF, but utilization for a particular project was not adopted. This First Amendment starts the clock for the utilization of the TIF parcels and to begin the discussions of TIF from 35th to 38th Avenues between Wadsworth Boulevard and Yukon Court. I wanted to also outline some financial impact that I thought would be noteworthy. An impact analysis was produced. It indicates the current annual property tax generated from the proposed development site is $121,061. There are no current sales tax generated from this site, so no sales tax generated. The proposed development is estimated to generate $249,500 in property tax annually in the year 2017, increasing to $392,500 by 2027. In addition, sales tax revenues in 2016 are projected to be just over $548,000 annually and increasing to approximately $901 annually by 2017. If a TIF agreement is approved, all impact taxing agencies, including the city, will continue to receive property tax per urban renewal laws, which is estimated at about $1.6 million over a 12-year period. Also, one additional thing is, as we have in previous situations, is we also go back to the fire department and schools and discuss this as a part of the project as well.
Thank you. That was a lengthy introduction. This is a public hearing, so I'm going to open that up, although we don't have to swear in by the nature of this. I am going to ask you, I'm hearing some cell phones go off. Please turn those off so they're not disturbing others. And I believe that there should be a list of, okay?
Mayor, as Ms. Davis did a great job of introducing this, just real quickly too, I'd like to add a few comments to this. That as she mentioned, we did receive a TIF request from Quadrant Properties. Staff is currently analyzing that TIF request with an independent financial advisor and bond counsel to determine what is most appropriate. If council does approve the utilization of TIF for this project tonight, a detailed staff will move forward with negotiations of that TIF, and then we'll bring back forward an agreement for City Council to review and approve in the future. But tonight we do have Bob Turner from Quadrant Properties and his team. They're here this evening to present their proposed development and to City Council for consideration of TIF assistance. So with that, I'll turn it over to Bob Turner.
Right. Maybe we'll go 2 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor Jay. It's Bob Turner. Bob's pretty easy to spell, T-U-R-N-E-R. My address is 981 South Park Drive. My address is 981 South Park Drive, Littleton, Colorado, 80120. My company is Quadrant Properties, and Patrick is correct. We did file an application for TIF financing for our development proposal at the intersection of 38th and Wadsworth. First of all, I'd like to thank the members of the council. I know you guys spent a lot of time and effort and love for your city, and we appreciate the opportunity to make this presentation to you. Also, I'd like to thank the staff for many years of work with us on this project to bring it to the point it is right now and bring together this development that the city, the residents, and the developer will be proud. I'd also like to thank the citizens and members of the public for their attendance. So why are we here? We're here to ask for council support for the resolution approving the First Amendment to the Wadsworth Boulevard Corridor Redevelopment Plan. How's that? Is that better? Are we able to turn the volume up? Because I'm speaking relatively loud.
Put your mouth close to it.
Can you pick up the mic?
Sure.
Yeah.
Better. So we're here to ask for council support for the resolution approving the First Amendment to the Wadsworth Boulevard Corridor Redevelopment Plan, and to present information to the City Council as the applicant for tax increment financing for the project. During this process, we've been asked a lot of questions. Two key questions that we will endeavor tonight to answer this evening are, what will the project look like, and why should this project be considered for tax increment financing? So, I'm going to give you just a brief outline of what you will hear tonight. You'll hear about an introduction to the development team. We'll go over the existing conditions of the property. My consultant team will provide a review of the site plan and a review of the proposed architecture. We'll then come back up as quadrant and go over a brief history of urban renewal in Wheat Ridge. And lastly, and I think very importantly, we'll do a review of the planning documents on file at the city affecting the property. I think it is the city planning documents that are the foundation of our plan, and we'll demonstrate that to you tonight. So, that being said, in the last piece, we'll talk a little bit about TIF and what that means to this project, what that means to us. So, a little bit about the developer introduction. We're Quadrant Properties. We're a Littleton, Colorado-based development team. My local partner, Linda Sweetman, and I have over 63 years of combined real estate experience. We have partners in St. Louis with another 40 or 50 years of real estate development experience throughout the country. Between Linda and I, we've developed over 25 shopping centers in the Front Range of Colorado, from Firestone, Colorado, down to Colorado Springs. 15 of those have been grocery-anchored projects. Over 30 residential developments over the course of both of our careers. So a pretty vast experience of development along the Front Range. And for Linda and I, mostly in the state of Colorado. So this is the site that we're talking about, and everyone can see it up above us. We've got, and the council can see it on their screens. Wadsworth Boulevard is a north-south street that runs the length of about 1,300 feet along the property from 35th Avenue in the south to 38th Avenue in the north. 38th Avenue is the east-west street, runs the length of the property from Yukon Court to 38th Avenue in the east. And this is a view of the property looking kind of west. This is a view of the property that is more oriented towards the site plan presentation we'll show a little later on in the presentation. Once again, you can see Wadsworth Boulevard labeled, Yukon Court labeled, and 38th Avenue on the north side of the property. So a little bit about the existing conditions of the site. The property is a 4-parcel assemblage. The first parcel that we're assembling is about a 10-acre site that is currently owned by Go Automotive, Chevron Automotive. The second parcel is a little less than 3 acres, and it's owned by the Harper family. And that was the old Johnny Harper Ford dealership, and it encompasses the 2 buildings that you see here. The third piece of property is a little less than a half an acre. It sits on the corner of 38th and Wadsworth, and that's owned by Emmanuel Bocelli, and Emmanuel ran Friendly Ford for many years. The fourth piece of property is down at the intersection of Yukon Court and 38th, sits on the southeast corner, and that's a little bit more than 35,000 square feet, and that is currently owned by the Wheat Ridge Urban Renewal Authority. So, talking a little bit more about the site and what are some of the challenges that are presented by this site. Well, first of all, you can see up in the corner of the property at the intersection of 38th and Wadsworth is a Bocelli parcel. It's about, as I said before, a little bit more than 18,000 square feet. On the hard corner of that site, this was an old Texaco gas station. And so this site right now currently has a defined plume of petroleum. Good news is we've got a voluntary cleanup plan that we filed with the state of Colorado, and our cleanup plan has been approved. So we think that is a challenge that we have been able to quantify. The second parcel that we'll talk about, and the challenge is from an environmental standpoint, is the Harper parcel, which is a 3-acre parcel that houses the old Ford dealerships. That site has asbestos in the block, asbestos throughout the building. It's a relatively expensive remediation process from our initial bids, from our initial discussions. Both parcels and both buildings are challenged with that environmental condition. In addition, there is some minor contamination that we have uncovered due to the use of the site as an automobile repair garage. So, what are some of the other challenges that are on this property? Well, and this all has to do with blight and has to do with things that you've probably heard about in urban renewal. One of them is assemblage. Because it's a 4-parcel assemblage and really dealing with 3 disparate ownership groups, it makes it hard to keep the project together, to hold the project together. So it takes a lot of time and a lot of effort and a lot of legal costs and a lot of coordination to keep that function, to keep that disparate ownership group together. The second thing we talked about, which I think was well documented, is the environmental contamination. The third thing that is a challenge for this piece of property, and that is a condition of blight, is the inadequate infrastructure. So there aren't walks surrounding the property. There isn't adequate infrastructure serving the property now from a utility standpoint. And so that is really one of the challenging pieces for this piece of property from a pro forma standpoint, from a development standpoint. So, and one thing I did fail to mention is we are really very appreciative of what Wheat Ridge Urban Renewal has done to help tie the northern portion of this project together. About a year and a half ago, we had attempted to purchase the property at Yukon Court and 38th. Wheat Ridge Urban Renewal, we weren't able to do it because of the existing environmental contamination, and it was perchloroethylene, trichloroethylene, and other constituents that were going off-site. We weren't able to take that project on, and the Wheat Ridge Urban Renewal Authority did that. So we'd like to give a kudos to Steve Art and his group, and we really believe that's a important piece of property for our project to have the cohesive nature that the city wants. So with that, I'd like to introduce our land planning, landscape architecture, engineering, building design, and architectural team for the presentation of the site plan and the architectural elements of the project. So first is Jim Shipton.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Jim Shipton, S-H-I-P-T-O-N. I'm with Point Consulting. We're a design firm in Littleton. The address is 8341 South Sandy de Cristo Road. I'm going to quickly walk through some of the layers of the site structure and planning that we've gone through to date. The first one is the right-of-way. We're looking at right-of-way dedication on all sides of the property, where we front Yukon Court, 38th Avenue, Wadsworth Boulevard, and 35th Avenue. There's a couple of things that are trying to be accomplished there. One is to create an amenity zone required by city zoning that allows for street trees, tree lawns, landscape, and pedestrian connectivity through new sidewalks. So as you can see by the highlighted area in orange, we're looking at about 2/3 of an acre to be dedicated to accomplish this. The next slide, Bob touched a little bit on the infrastructure and the utilities. So this is what we're looking at or planning for sanitary sewer improvements, water improvements that'll service the site and uses, as well as fire protection, and then the stormwater improvements. Right now, there is a regional pond on the west side of the property that collects some regional water and then slowly releases that stormwater into a system onto 38th Avenue. That system on 38th Avenue currently is over capacity. In major storm events, you'll get standing water out on 38th Avenue because our current site, much of our current site is paved and runs directly into 38th Avenue. So we've got a highlighted area in the middle of our site near buildings B, C, and D. I can point that out here with the mouse. This area, this is the area that will capture that runoff that currently runs off of that pavement into 38th Avenue. We'll capture it, detain it, and slowly release it into 38th Avenue. Hopefully alleviate some of those problems on that storm sewer system that's out there today. Next, in our proposed site plan, we'll be providing for vehicular access to the site. Currently, the site has 20 access points off of all of our adjacent streets. We're going to reduce that down to 7 focused access points, 1 off of Yukon, 1 off of 38th, 3 off of Wadsworth Boulevard, and then 2 off of 35th Avenue. The highlighted brown areas represents our pedestrian connectivity. This is something that we've gone over with staff quite extensively. They're looking to make the pedestrian connections throughout the site in all directions, from north to south and east to west. We're primarily focused on what's going to happen up here at buildings B, C, and D. Trying to create a pedestrian gathering space and plaza, bring pedestrians in off of the major corner into our site, create somewhat of a meandering pedestrian connection into our retail grocer toward the middle of the site. In addition to that, we're planning on bicycle parking nodes. We're looking at 2 of those right up at our major corner, 1 off of Wadsworth Boulevard. It will likely be in conjunction with the RTD bus stop that's out there. Another off of 38th Avenue. This node will include bicycle parking, some benches and seating, trash containers, things like that, creating that node out on the street. And then internally to our site, we will provide bike lockers for longer-term bicycle storage and even more secure bicycle storage. And then we've anticipated that we'll have a similar node down at the grocer and potentially in our future phases associated with the residential product and some of the future retail. This next slide highlights the areas that we anticipate for landscaping. We're looking to provide appropriate uses of landscape, screening where needed, shade for cooling and retreat in some of our public spaces, and visual interest throughout the site. Part of our site planning process and part of what's in some of the city's documents is to create either screening of the parking and vehicular movements within the property by placing buildings up on the street, which you can see we've anticipated much of 38th Avenue and a good portion of Wadsworth. And where we don't have a building up next to the street, we've left or anticipated additional landscape that'll include berming, screen plantings, and screen walls out in front of our grocery along Wadsworth. Finally, as you kind of culminate all these layers into a site plan, this is the plan that we're anticipating. We've talked quite a bit about buildings B, C, and D up on the corner. That's part of our first phase of improvements, including the plaza that I've talked about a little bit, and then our grocer retail at the center of their property. And then we've filled in and done some work on and trying to get these other users in place. They're just not quite to the same stage that we're at this evening. For the multifamily at the south and west of the site, and some future retail opportunities. My final slide is an enlargement of the plaza in the area between buildings B, C, and D. Trying to identify some of the colors, materials, level of texture, and site furnishings that we're including in here. I talked about the RTD bus stop with bike racks, bench and trash receptacles. Similar note over again on 38th. We've looked at the plaza, incorporating some large textured colored concrete along with patio pavers. We hope to get restaurant users on the end caps of these buildings and create patios for outdoor use. We've incorporated some screen walls up at the corner, along with some materials to help with the acoustics and screen some of the noise and activity that comes off of primarily Wadsworth Boulevard. Again, bringing this connection into our site to our bike lockers, and then tying that again through that pedestrian connectivity through the remainder of the project. We anticipate that these materials, colors, furnishings will be used throughout the project. Next, I'm going to turn the presentation over to Ken Mansouri. Ken's going to talk about these three buildings up along 38th Avenue and Wadsworth Boulevard. Thank you.
You need to just do it the other way, sideways. You needed to just turn it sideways, but
Members of the council, thank you for this opportunity. I'm Ken Mansouri, M-A-N-S-S-O-U-R-I, partner with NAMA Partners, located in 6140 Greenwood Plaza Drive, Greenwood Village, Colorado.
thank you, Ken.
Um,
Yeah.
Our project consists of retail buildings, commercial buildings. There's going to be several images that I'll be talking about, and for that, I'm just going to go through some flat elevations and briefly discuss what you're about to see, and then I'll focus on individual and three-dimensional elements that might be easier to comprehend. Our building, the elevation, this is the 38th Avenue building, and basically the product's range of material indicates colors, type of materials, change in elevations, colors, profile and the modulation, recessed elements, and so forth. We have met the guidelines set before us and exceeded some, and we are basically introducing a lot of glass as required and more to comply with the transparency. This is the building on Wadsworth. And finally, the next one that is also to the south of the building on the 38th. As you can see, change in materials and articulations provide distinct difference between all three buildings and try to sort of put it all together. This development is going to have consistent use of materials and compatible, so it'll present itself as an overall consistent development. What you see before you is a three-dimensional rendering of the project. One thing I want to say is some of the white stuff you see on the sidewalk is not meant to be there. It's just in terms of the rendering issues we were dealing with. Otherwise, it would have basically integral color concrete. And the glass that you see before you, it's portrayed here a little bit dark. That would be a see-through glass. And again, another problem with the rendering program. But beyond that, what we have here is using really an urban design, bringing urban design into the overall development. We have tried to create a soft corner, providing a public plaza for the development as well as the public to enjoy. Seating areas and interaction, social interaction is envisioned to take place. What we also wanted to do is to design a signature place. What you see before you is a series of those blue light tubes. They shall be intended to have LED lights that can be controlled during the different season of the year. And the light box are going to be something that would be more of a physical memory for the members of the public, where you could say, meet me at the such and such with the light tubes, buildings with the light tubes and so forth. That said, we are using basically high quality synthetic materials, synthetic stone, I'm sorry, out here. We're using natural stone slate tiles. We're using hard coat stucco. We're providing base ground concrete masonry unit and turning into in the vertical element with a ground face of 4-inch module. The urban design tries to basically distinguish the building by creating a hierarchy of the layers, architectural layers, as well as treating the pedestrian levels and try to comply with a more friendly user type of environment. We have done a 4-sided building architecture, trying to remain cognizant of the location of the building. Urban design, as I indicated, has looked at the massing hierarchy of the building. We have tried to create a base for the building, the body, and the top through the change in material. We have tried to focus on the corners, soften the corners, and try to layer it so it can respond to the plaza as well. Every building is going to use a little bit of a different details to distinguish itself from the next, but yet keep its harmonious overall design for it to collectively be one center. Here's a close-up of the plaza. There shall be a project development sign. You see the stone as well as the seating that would be provided for the tenant, and the public seating that would be provided for the plaza. The plaza also, the separation of the building also allows you the view of the center and to have a direct sort of path, visual path into the space beyond. There's a close-up look of building on 38th Avenue. It's a combination of slate tile, stone. Here's our slate tiles, stone, and hard coat stucco. We've tried to pay similar attention to the corner of the building. Buildings have been pushed back in order to allow for deep recessed profiles of about 24 inches, 18 inches in some instances. And as you can see, this is a west entry onto the site. As we turn around, the same level of detail has been sort of continued, light boxes in a different application, as well as details, as you can see, such as canopy and use of stone, stepping of the parapets, and to sort of overall bring it all together. Use of 4-inch ground face masonry to simulate the brick and provide a pedestrian scale character for the building. Finally, the building to the south that would, again, differentiate itself through the use of material, and yet same vocabulary, just different reinterpretation and detailing on the building. Looking at the Wadsworth site, you see both buildings looking toward the intersection, and a close-up look of the corner building itself at the Wadsworth. And it's just a quick interpretation of what it would look like in the evening. With that, I'm going to turn the rest of the presentation to my colleague, and who will be discussing the grocer development.
Thank you, Kim.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, councils. My name is Brett Martinez, Martinez, with LK Architecture, Inc., out of Wichita, Kansas, 67209. Some of the reoccurring themes that we've been discussing tonight on the building as well as the site are connectivity, the connectivity we have in materials as well as the designs of the building, and the connectivity we have with pedestrian and vehicular traffic, as well as visual interest that we have on the building and the site connections. Starting with the front facade is what we have up on the screen. The main idea was to draw attention to the entrance through hierarchy, using a higher parapet, using different materials than the rest of the building, while still meeting the ordinances on glazing and stepping in and out of our facades. The main entry at the center, it uses ephes up above the green element, which is the canopy piece that wraps around the overall primary and secondary entrance piece. The secondary entrance piece is the glazing just located to the left. Use the laser. Glazing located to the left of the entry. The main entries you can see just below the canopy, with our pilaster pieces which match the same stone piece that's used on the adjacent retail shops. That's represented in our material sample board. The vertical elements that's used on the glazing. I'm sorry. Okay. The vertical elements used on the glazing are similar to the light boxes which are used on the adjacent retail. We're using them in a different fashion. We're actually using a glazing tinted piece that will be one color during the day, and then the use of LED lights at night to illuminate that and draw more attention to pedestrians as well as people entering the grocery store. The grocery store is a proposed 41,000 square foot store. The architectural design is been reviewed by staff comments as well as the developer and his team, and taking in those comments to connect building design with elements as well as materials, as well as some of the ephes and cornice metal that's along the top of the parapet. We're using a varied steps of our parapets along the front to draw your attention to the main entry. And you can see the ephes spot that's right here that I talked about to be used for signage, main signage into the building. Some of the other elements that we use the stone base along the bottom as well as in the pilaster pieces. We're using some metal canopy pieces to provide articulation along the front. We're using a half-high CMU, which is similar to the stone. It's a different material look, but it's complementary to the overall color of the design. We're using that in the human area, just below the band that continues along the building. Flip back through the side elevation as well. Going back to the front also, the glazing that's used all along the front is all transparent glazing into areas that you could see into the grocery store. The glazing that continues along the side, the lower portion is a spandrel glass with the upper portion allowing light above any racks or fixtures that would be along the perimeter of the sales floor of the grocery, and it would still, in our opinion, meet the ordinance. Some of the other elements that we use around in terms of our parapet steps, you'll see a dash line along the front and side elevations as well as the rear elevation. That's representative of where our main building roof would be, and it also shows you representation from about 6 foot to 8'8", a parapet height that would allow for screening at the ground level to any roof-mounted equipment. We also use that parapet step to, again, use visual connectivity to our surrounding parapets and our surrounding building. Also along the rear elevation, which is what this shows right now, we have screened walls for the trucks as well as other ground-mounted equipment like our compactor. You can see the dash line of the truck in white as well as the dash line of the compactor in white, so that would be fully screened from adjacent properties. Some of the side elevations also show the material that would be used as gates to enclose the compactor and any bale and pallet trash that would be behind the store, which is just not represented in the rendering. Some of the other things that we're representing in our perspectives, just to give you an idea of what a customer would see at the ground level as they approach. This would be taking from the east end of the parking lot as you look back towards the east facade or the front facade of the building. Just give you an idea of the overall connection across the parking lot. This would be, again, behind the berm, which would be along the east end of our property. And then the last rendering that we're showing is more of the main entrance into the store. You can see the vertical element during the day. It's just a different color glass. Our other glazing pieces would just be a transparent glazing piece. Our canopy piece that connects the overall entry, as well as stepping out from the main parapet or from the main building wall to give that connectivity of entrance. We've also increased our sidewalk to allow for additional space, that connectivity to the adjacent retail shops or the adjacent residential, which to be determined at this point. But you begin to have that pedestrian orientation. You can connect, walk through from one place to the other. That's all I have at this point. I want to turn it back over to Bob.
Thank you, Brett.
Thank you, Brett. So I said a little bit earlier that we'd take a look at the foundation of what you've seen tonight in the city's planning documents. I think it's important to do that. I know that council's probably familiar with all these documents, but I think it's important for us as a developer to understand those documents, and important to discuss those documents and show those documents to the public who are attending here tonight. So I think the first document that I'd like to talk about is our zoning. What kind of zoning do we have on the property? Well, we're in the mixed-use commercial zone district. What does it say about the mixed-use commercial zone district? Generally located along commercial corridors, is established to encourage medium to high density mixed use development. I think the plan that you saw earlier does comply with that mixed use zoning code. Covers our buildings on Wadsworth per the code, complies with the coverage on 38th and 35th Avenue per the code. So we fully intend to comply with that mixed use zoning code. Additionally, it says the mixed-use zone code emphasizes building form rather than permitted uses. Range of permitted uses is permitted to promote mixed-use development. So every use that you've seen on our site plan is an allowed use within our mixed-use zone code. I think the second document, and a very important document that we need to talk about with reference to our property, is the most recent document affecting our property with reference to the comprehensive plan. So what is that plan? It's the 38th Avenue Corridor Plan. So what does it say in the about the 38th Avenue Corridor Plan? Well, it says the 38th Avenue Corridor Plan shall supersede the comprehensive plan for the portion of the city covered by the corridor plan, of which you'll see in just the next slide, our property is covered by the 38th Avenue Corridor Plan. So Councilman DiTullio signed that in October 2011. So that is the most recent document, 4 years old, a little less than that, covering the development of our property. So let's delve into that a little bit further. What does it say? Well, the first thing we're taking a look at is you're looking at the city's adopted plan for our property in their comprehensive planning document. We've highlighted just a couple, I think, very important excerpts from that plan. It says, due to the site size and visibility from Wadsworth, larger format retailers and national chains would fit well. This comes directly from the city's comprehensive plan, the 38th Avenue Corridor Plan. Lastly, it says, or lastly, what we've excerpted says, ideally, new development of this site will be mixed use with office and residential uses in addition to retail. Now, there's much more that we could go into, but I think that says enough. It gives us a picture of what the city's adopted comprehensive plan is for our property, and it tells us what the city was expecting when they adopted this comprehensive plan. Last thing we did was we're just going to do a real quick comparison on one slide. What do we see here? Well, I think my land planners and architects would like to take credit for the plan that you see below, but really, it's almost a mirror image of the plan that you see above. That's the city's plan for our property. Buildings covering 38th and Wadsworth, residential on the south side, a large retail anchor in the middle of the site, and buildings covering the corner of 35th and Wadsworth. So if you take a look at those two plans and study them for just a minute, I think you'll see dramatic similarities between our plan and the city's plan for the property and the comprehensive plan of the 38th Avenue Corridor Plan. So the last document that I think is important to talk about is the Wadsworth Boulevard Corridor Redevelopment Plan. And that's really what the crux of the matter, what we're here to talk about tonight. So let's take a look at that plan. We've excerpted from some items from it. It's adopted in 2001. Public process, public hearing, just like the zoning, just like the adoption of the 38th Avenue Corridor Plan and the amendment to the comp plan. So what does it say? It says the Wadsworth Boulevard redevelopment area, of which we are part of, was blighted, as defined by Colorado urban law. It says the redevelopment area is appropriate for authorized undertakings and activities of the authority, pursuant to urban renewal law. Also says the findings and recommendations of this corridor redevelopment plan are consistent with land use planners' goals and objectives identified in the adopted comprehensive plan. We are, I believe, in full compliance with that adopted comprehensive plan. You can just take a look at the two site plans. Next thing it says, the city may authorize utilization of TIF under CRS of the urban renewal law.
and the utilization of TIF for such redevelopment activities as described herein will necessitate a modification of or to this corridor redevelopment plan. And so that's what we're here to talk about tonight. That's what we're asking council to approve tonight, is that modification to the corridor redevelopment plan. So, here you see a map from the Wadsworth Boulevard corridor redevelopment plan. You see the bottom yellow circle, that's the intersection of 38th and Wadsworth. It calls out our site as the Chesron site and calls it as mixed-use commercial in that 2001 corridor plan. So what does it say specifically about our site in the corridor plan? It says approximately 15 acres and includes the existing auto dealership. It says what uses could be good for it. Well, it talks about a commercial retail center. It talks about pad uses such as restaurant, gas stations, and auto-oriented services. Village retail, similar to the commercial retail center, but with more pedestrian-oriented features. I think you'll agree that we've got excellent pedestrian connectivity in our plan, including buildings located closer to the street. Clearly from our plan, the majority of our buildings were meeting that mixed-use zone code. A majority of our buildings are covering 35th and 38th and Wadsworth Boulevard. Less visible parking. We've talked about the screening from Wadsworth Boulevard for the parking screens that are visible, and a mix of compatible uses. So what kind of uses do we see going here? Well, the site plan contemplates a grocery store, so a small format grocery store. A little bit more than 40,000 square feet. I think the Safeway grocery store is about 55 or 60,000 square feet across the street. Sit-down restaurants. We've got areas and plazas designed for patios, outdoor space. We have interest from some really neat little sit-down restaurant, burger joints, family joints, places that I go with my children to have a Friday afternoon or a Friday night dinner, have a discussion about school. So breakfast shops, coffee shops, a lot of the national retailers that they talked about earlier in the comp plan that would be appropriate for this site. Pizza restaurants, noodles and Asian concepts, all those guys have shown preliminary interest in the site. So that's what we see on our shops buildings. So I think it's appropriate to talk a little bit about tax increment financing, TIF, the gap test. And I took a look at the council study session from last Monday night. So I want to fully at least go over a little bit of history on this property and keep that council study session in mind as I go through that. So in 2001, we know there was a finding of a blight on the property, and the Wadsworth Boulevard corridor plan, the redevelopment plan, was adopted. So that's kind of the base underlying document for why we're here tonight. So let's talk about urban renewal. So what are the tools available to the Urban Renewal Authority? We know we're in an urban renewal district. Well, one of the most important tools and one of the most often used tools is the use of tax increment financing. So what does increment mean in tax increment financing? I think simply stated it means the increased revenue or the increment from sales and property taxes generated from the development of the property. So it's the increment over and above the base. Right now, this property, as we talked about before, it has a zero sales tax base, and it has, I think, $120,000 or $130,000 a year in property tax as the base. As the blighted property sits here now, we talked about this, there's no sales tax and minimal property tax. So, once again, the sales and property taxes over and above that base is the increment. So what is the gap test? I think you guys may have talked about this. What is the gap in a development on an infill site like this, on a brownfield site like this? Well, I also think that can be boiled down to a simple statement. It's kind of the but-for proposition or the but-for statement. But for the sharing of the sales and property taxes generated from the redevelopment of the property to assist for the eligible costs of the development, the property is not economically feasible for the private sector to develop. So we have submitted documents to the city, documents which are faithful, true to the best of our ability, and honest, demonstrating that gap. So that's why the Wadsworth Boulevard Corridor Plan was initiated and adopted in the first place, to be able to use the tools for urban renewal and economic development in order for a property to develop. So our gap or shortfall in the project is $7.8 million. Some of you may have seen that document. So that's what we believe to be necessary for the project to achieve a reasonable cost-on-cost return, which is one way that we look at our projects. Or an internal rate of return, and we use that less, but we did that analysis here, for the capital investment required to make the project come to fruition. Interestingly, it is proportionally similar to the TIF and the economic incentive package approved at the Kipling Ridge project. On an acre for acre basis, it's almost the same. It's about 8% more on our project than it was on the Kipling Ridge project. Now, there could be a bunch of factors that go into there. Maybe it's just the year since their pro forma was done and our pro forma was done, and the increased cost for the infrastructure that we're putting in. I think all of us can agree construction costs have gone up, we think, dramatically over the last year or two, and we hope they're going to stabilize, because that's important to us as developers. But so going back to what I talked about before, I think we've had our discussion about TIF, and at least my simple understanding of where I think we are in this project. I just look at a project and I say, what is my cost-on-cost return and an IRR that's reasonable for us to expect from a project like this? We're at that edge on this one right now. So I want to do a couple of things too. I want to acknowledge the concerns of 2 members of Planning Commission. So in their comments, they stated they didn't have enough information to prove that the development conforms to the comprehensive plan. Well, what we'd like to do tonight, I think we've demonstrated tonight, is that the information conclusively demonstrates that we are in compliance with the comprehensive plan, particularly the 38th Avenue corridor plan, which, as we talked about before, supersedes the comp plan. They didn't see this presentation. We weren't invited to present that evening, or we weren't allowed to answer questions from the commission. So that information, I think, is important for council to know. I think it's also important for council to see the information on the board, how our plan complies with that 38th Avenue corridor plan, and thus complies with the comprehensive plan. So we believe that we've demonstrated that the plan presented is in compliance with the Wadsworth Boulevard corridor redevelopment plan, and we respectfully request that you approve the resolution before you tonight approving City Council's plan. City Council's own plan is demonstrated by the City Council documents for the property. So this is a significant opportunity, we think. It's been 3 years in the making that's working on this project to get to this point now. 3 years and many hundreds of thousands of dollars in pursuit costs. And we think it's a significant opportunity for this city too, and the citizenry, to revitalize, transform a corner that's been blighted almost 15 years ago. 15 years ago, the city blighted this corner, and nothing's happened on it yet. That's a long time. So with your partnership, I can promise you we'll build a development of which you'll be proud. We'll be proud, and the citizens of Wheat Ridge will be proud. So thank you, and we're available for questions.
Thank you for the presentation. If you could go back to the slide that has the comparison of the 38th Avenue corridor plan as well as the comp or your site plan. Just a quick question related to what seems to be an absence of a building located due east of the retail anchor. And I'm just wondering if was a conversation, has been a conversation, or still could be a conversation as to why that one omission seems to be in this plan, and that looks as though it shields looking as you look into the depth of the site that may have been the intention. And I'm just wondering if there was any conversations about that during the development of the lower plan on this slide.
You know, yes, we did have conversations about that. Thank you for asking. We need to have a certain amount of parking field for that grocery user. And so the parking field that's out there right now meets their minimum standards and meets it just barely. What the buildings that are along Wadsworth Boulevard do is they conform to and satisfy the requirements under the mixed-use zoning code. Additionally, what we've done is we are berming the Wadsworth Boulevard entryway there along the to the east of the anchor along Wadsworth Boulevard, and providing us a 3-foot high screen wall so that the parking lot won't be visible from cars going by. And so I don't know what the elevation on the berm is, Jimmy. What's the elevation? 1.5 feet, 2 feet? So you'll have somewhere around a 5-foot high wall to screen that.
Just a quick follow up on the. Is there a difference then on the retail minimum for parking and the site design standards that are outlined by the city's documents?
Mr. Palm, would you mind rephrasing that again?
Yeah, there was reference. Mr. Turner referenced the fact that there was parking ratios that were required, and it sounded like you mentioned that they were required by the retailer. I'm wondering if those parking requirements are in alignment with our city documents or are different.
Right. I believe that the retailer's parking requirements might be slightly higher. We have a fairly low parking requirements by design in our mixed-use zoning regulations, and then we do have parking maximums in our mixed-use zoning regulations as well, and they're certainly not exceeding those parking maximums with what's being proposed.
Thank you.
Mr. DiTullio.
Thank you. I want to bring this back to the TIF. I mean, I understand that this meets all of the comp plan and the urban renewal plan projections, and that I signed this back in 2011 as mayor, that the plan itself was or the area was blighted and it was a problem. My question is, I have 3 questions. This is about tax increment financing and this being supported by taxpayers. So I guess my first question is, it was mentioned at the Planning Commission meeting by the Economic Development Manager that a portion of this TIF was going to be used for the purchase of the property because the land was overpriced, and this is on Channel 8, and it's documented because I was watching it, and that a portion of this TIF was going to be used for the purchase of the property, and when it was asked how much of that percentage of the $7.8 million would be used for purchase of the property, nobody really seemed to have that number. And so my question is this TIF, if it's approved eventually or not, going to be used to purchase this property? That's my first question, as a portion of the property.
Well, thank you for asking that question. I think it's a good question. I think that you have to go back to the utilization of TIF dollars first. So what can you utilize TIF dollars for? And I think you got to go back to what that answer is. I think that in the Kipling Ridge project that we talked about, that yes, part of those dollars, part of that tax increment finance dollars, and part of that economic incentive dollars were used to purchase what was considered to be an overmarket property. I think, Councilman DiTullio, if you would look at our proposal and our numbers that are in front of the Urban Renewal Authority and the Urban Renewal Director now, I think what you'll find is we have not allocated any tax increment finance dollars to the purchase of the property, although the property is very expensive. What we have looked at and what our engineers and what our construction firm has looked at is what are the costs of the eligible public improvements on the site. Now those costs far exceed what we have put in our gap financing. I can't remember what the exceeding number is, but they exceed that number. What we went back to was, what do we think is our minimum cost on cost return for the project? Now, we're below the minimum. Now we're about 0.07% below what we think is that razor's edge, that minimum. But so to answer your question, in our proposal, no, there were none of those funds allocated towards purchase of the property.
Okay, thank you. Then the second question I had is, have you approached the retail anchors and said, would they be willing to pony up the dough for this development since they're going to be reaping the benefits of this location? And to tell you the truth, I don't care who the retail anchor is, grocer or not. That's not my concern. My concern is the amount of money being fronted up for this project. So have you approached the major anchor whoever that might be, and said, would you be willing to pony up some dollars for this project?
We spent, and to answer your question, we spent many, many months negotiating what we think is the edge of their economic deal based on their projected sales revenue. So as I talked about before, Linda and I have done many, many grocery-anchored shopping centers up and down the Front Range. Typically, the grocer makes the development happen from a standpoint of the everyday needs, the traffic, driving the sales tax revenue in this event drives the sales tax revenue. It really drives about 2/3 of that sales tax revenue. So Wheat Ridge isn't unique along the Front Range in the fact that they have sales tax on groceries, but it's, if not, then this project wouldn't stand a chance of penciling. So to answer your question, we spent many, many months negotiating the most aggressive rental rate that we could from that retailer, and that is now in a negotiated lease document, almost ready for signature.
So back to my first question, the comments that were made at the Planning Commission, it mentioned that the property was overpriced and that it was you were paying a premium because of this location because you had some sellers that were asking a premium price. Is this being, are you paying over market value for this property?
Have you had an opportunity to take a look at our finance project, our documents that are in front of the city?
Well, I'll tell you what, a core request was made, and that was denied by the Urban Renewal Authority Executive Director, so we haven't seen any of those numbers.
Okay, all right. I think overall, we may be a little bit above market when you blend in the 4-parcel assemblage for this piece of property. I do have enough confidence, though, in the intersection and the demand, the retail demand for that intersection, for our shops and for our retail users, that we'll be able to make the project work as penciled.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tulio. Councilmember Davis?
So I have a couple comments and then I have a couple questions. And I'm sure you know where probably some of them are going if you read the study session minutes. So a couple comments I have just in general is, as a city, as in Wheat Ridge, as in some also surrounding cities, we've been very successful with our TIF process throughout the city. Wheat Ridge Cyclery actually was a recipient of TIF, and I see them out there. And it was nice to see that redevelopment, to see them be able to grow their business, and actually their business did grow, and the TIF was paid back to the city in a shorter amount of time than we expected. So within the city, we saw that growth. So it's real. That's a positive thing. TIF, as some of you know or may not know, the Wheat Ridge Town Center, which I've known even as a little kid. I believe a long time ago it used to be a rundown store called the Gym that sat empty forever until this TIF was given to the development of that property at the Wheat Ridge Town Center. For you who don't know that, that's 38th and Wadsworth, Caddy Corner, where the Safeways, the McDonald's, the Burger King, and all of that was done. A very successful TIF, which the city has benefited from. So in many respects, I don't feel TIF is a 4-letter word. It's actually 3. And and so I do think it's something to consider to help our city move forward. I think more the passionate thing in this is perhaps the retail anchor, which I know by contract and all that you're not allowed to say, but I can say it, I was told. So it's a Walmart grocer. And I think that's caused a little passion behind that. I know as a city council person, anyone who's called me, and I've called them back and I said, let me come talk to you. Let's talk about it. Let me kind of tell you the details of where we are and what we're doing. And from that, I've heard a lot of things. And I've heard a lot of things such as, the small businesses in our city don't want it. I've heard, lots of different stories. And so I want to address some of those, and then I have some tougher questions for you. So I know at one point we did get together and there were petitions signed by a lot of our smaller businesses that support this development. Some of those being as close as next door, Vanola's, the Ficos who are across the street, Wheat Ridge Lanes, Wardle, Michi's. I can go through, and there's a lot of businesses Wheat Ridge businesses that feel they're going to benefit from this as well. So, you know, I know there's kind of the rumors and those types of things that the smaller businesses don't support that, and I think that the city has gone to these businesses and talked to them, and they do, and a lot of them do support it. Interestingly enough, I see on some of those, I think that randomly they get put on these people's property just because someone has a sign on their hands and they put it there, but it doesn't necessarily mean that these businesses, because again, they're listed in here as supporting it. So I think some of that information out there is not always correct information. Now, that being said, I do understand from a city standpoint that it wasn't long ago we were saying that, wow, we need a tax base and where are we going to get our money, et cetera, et cetera. So I can understand as residents, folks are going to be saying, no, wait a minute. You just told us you needed money and now you're going to give it away. So I understand that, and I understand that, you know, that our city does need that tax base to help with our streets, with our sewage, with our drainage, with all of the above, with further development. And I do understand that, so I still proceed with caution. And I want to make sure that if some of our dollars go to this corner, that it's done in a fashion that our community will sit and be happy that that investment went there. Now, that being said, we might have to swallow the bitter pill of the anchor. But I think the other thing that I want to talk about is the other developers, because this is some concern, and I'm going to ask you of this. This is the concern that some people have, that it's going to become something to the effect of like Discount Corner. So I don't want it to be this corner that all of a sudden we have a retail grocer, Walmart, and then we're going to end up having payday loans and the dollar store and things like that, that as a city we don't want that in this development. We have very few corners to develop. This was a big one to us, and in the words of me, we want to knock it out of the park. So can you help address what retailers might go in here, what discussions you have? You kind of generalized, but I think the other thing that's hard for me is, so one question, retailers. Second question is the other TIF we did, they came to the table with a little bit more information as far as who's going, this is who's going in, A, B, C. We only have one lot that's one retail space that's not filled. So I guess help me understand how we can be assured that we're going to get the best for our dollar here.
Okay. Thank you. Let me address, I think I heard a lot of different points there, so let me try and address it kind of from back, going from the last going forward. When you talk about the TIF finance proposal that was the Kipling Ridge Marketplace, as I understand it, it was the residential component that was a part of the deal. Also, one tenant, maybe it was just one tenant or maybe another existing tenant that was there on site, and another larger tenant, which was the grocery store, the grocery user. So this is a double the size site, twice the size. So we have confidence in our ability to finalize our negotiations with the grocery user. Now I'm going to go back and say, okay, we don't want it to be Discount Corner from a standpoint of a city and from a standpoint of a citizenry. Well, there's a couple of things that I can speak to that, and then we'll start talking about the genre of uses that we're talking about and what that's going to look like. The first thing that I can speak to is that
what staff has talked to us about, and we've been working with staff on 4 or 5 or 6 go-rounds on the building design, on the site design, on the elevations, on the articulation, all the things that Ken Mansouri was talking about and what these buildings are going to look like. I think you can take a look at those buildings and agree that they're going to be very expensive buildings to build. In addition, we're in a pretty inflationary construction market right now. So we know that we have a site that Councilman DiTullio talked about is, are we paying more for this site than it's worth? Well, I think we're there on my cost return. Is the site an expensive site to develop? Yes, we've talked about those expenses, and those expenses are discussed more further in my performance and in my documents to the city. The third thing is, are the buildings expensive to develop? And they are expensive buildings to develop. What you're seeing is four-sided architecture. You're seeing transparency through all sides of the buildings. You're seeing plain articulation. You're seeing very expensive materials used throughout. Part of that is part of the mixed-use zone code, but we've gone above and beyond the requirements of that mixed-use zone code at the direction of staff because we know it's such an important project for you guys. So the next question is, so for us, who are the rent payers? Who can pay the rent that are going to be dictated to get us to that cost on cost return, that razor that we're at right now? Well, the highest rent payers are restaurants. So what genre of restaurants do you have? Well, you've got breakfast restaurants, you've got national, nice breakfast restaurants, and there might be a different kinds of very nice restaurants that are out there. You've got lunch and dinner restaurants. We've got several of those that are interested, have submitted letters of intent or calling us. When will we get a site plan? So those are the highest payers for us. Those are the types of numbers that we need dictated from our pro forma to go ahead and have this project pencil. We've got interest from tenants that can pay that rent on the 3 buildings you see up front. Why we're phasing the project is because we're conservative in nature. We know we've got a great corner. We think we've got a great intersection at 38th and Wadsworth. We've got people coming from inside of Wheat Ridge, that this is their focal point, and outside of Wheat Ridge, we've got a grocery store that provides that everyday needs, that reinforcement. You might go to a grocery store 3 or 4 times a week. You'd go to another similarly sized retailer maybe once, twice a month. So that's very important for this site, is that type of retail generator and that type of activity. So our pro forma dictates the types of tenants that we'll be able to lease to, and a dollar store isn't going to pay us the type of rents we need, or a pawn shop, or whatever you're discussing there. I also think you're selling your community a little short, and this intersection a little short. What are we looking for at this intersection? We're looking for that neighborhood shopper. We're also looking to expand the trade area with the legs of Wadsworth and the legs of 38th. I think we're able to do that. The interest level we've received so far, Councilwoman, is good, and I feel confident and comfortable to have spent the pursuit monies that we've spent to date to go ahead and get the get the project to this point. So, a couple other things you talked about, giving away money. Well, we talked about this before, and I think you were at the study session. There's an increment on this project, and that increment is the sales tax dollars and the property tax dollars above that base. So when the city talks about giving away money, there's not money there now.
No, I understand that.
So half of, I heard it the other Monday night, 50% of zero is still zero. This project brings that type of revitalization to this corner. And so anyway, so I hope I've answered your questions. Do you have more?
Christy, did you get your questions answered?
A little bit. Names, I mean, I know at one point, I guess maybe you can't say names again, but I think that's the struggle. I mean, I know names. There was a burger place that you had once said that was interested, but I think it just gives people more of a vision of what this corner can be. So I do have more, but I'll let other people talk first.
All right, I'm going to hold you, Mr. DiTullio, until we get some of the others to speak that wanted to. Ms. Wooden?
Thank you for your presentation. I do have a couple of questions about the project as a whole. And the first one would be for the first phase that you're talking about, buildings B, C, and D. How many businesses are you looking at filling in those 3 buildings?
Well, we've got letters or interest on building the south building, Building D. So it would be half of that. We've got interest on half of that. Buildings C and B are about 15,000 square feet. So if your average tenant is anywhere between, let's say, 1,500 and 45, let's give an average tenant somewhere in the 2,500 to 3,000 square foot range, you're looking in the neighborhoods of 7 to 8 tenants within those 3 buildings right there. Possibly more. It might go to 9, it might go to 6. It just depends. We may get a full restaurant user for Building C or Building B.
Okay.
Right now, we've got interest in our end caps for those units right now, but if we have a full user that's the right kind of user, the right kind of restaurants, we'll go ahead and make that deal.
So hypothetically, if those 3 are the first phase and those are built, would they be 100% occupied?
Well, in our experience, and we don't show users on our 2 pads to the south yet, only because we haven't really released our site plan until we go ahead and get approved. I think that we'll have one pad in our phase 1, and it's possible that we might have 2, but I don't anticipate them being 100% leased before we break ground. When the real momentum begins is when there's shovels turned, and then when people can see it's a real project. You have real estate reps that live all throughout the country. And so when they travel, they want to make the most of their time, and they want to look at, with their tenant rep brokers, they want to look at projects that are going to happen. They want to be on the ground when they happen, not too far in advance, and they don't want to be behind. So I think it's a powerful intersection. I think we'll be leased by the time we're done.
Okay. And then that front plaza area that you had pictures of.
Yes.
How big is that? I mean, is it as big as this room?
Let me go ahead and have Jim speak to that.
So if we look at this plan, the depth of building C and B are both about 60 feet. So if you project that over the plaza, it's maybe 80 feet from east to west and 40 or 50 feet north to south.
Okay.
From the sidewalks. The sidewalks and the landscape out to the edge of the street are part of the right-of-way and part of
Okay.
different part of the plaza.
Okay. I have another question. I'm sorry, but could you go back to that other map you were at? Sorry. That one's fine. So the back corner, the multifamily residential, how many units are you looking at in that area?
Yeah, I think currently what's represented on the plan is about 35 units.
35 units. And are these condos? What are they? Apartments?
They'll be townhomes, 3-story townhomes, and they'll be built by a separate developer.
Okay. So this area to the west, now in another picture it showed water, but this it doesn't really show. Is the water retention underground, or is it park, or what is it? The area to the west?
The pond that's represented in a couple of different ways on our plans to the west of the grocery, along the west of the property, is an existing facility. During storm events, to the west of the property is an existing detention retention facility. During storm events, there will be standing water, but it's designed to release water in about a 48-hour period of time downstream through the stormwater system.
So it's not usable by the public, it is water retention?
Yes.
Okay, okay. And then to the north of the grocer, that looks like is that a gas station?
It's a fueling station, yes, associated with the grocery.
Okay. And I just wanted to echo Ms. Davis' comments that, as I look at the project as a whole, I see we could have some some quality townhomes and some quality retail, but again, it has to be quality for the whole project to work. And I would echo Christie's comments, and I'm also just somewhat concerned that everything gets filled, that we don't have empty storefronts.
Well, yeah, and I guess to speak to that, I can speak to 25 years in the retail, tenant representation, development business. My first love, starting 30 years ago, was leasing shop space around grocery-anchored centers. About 12 years ago, I got the opportunity to develop my own grocery-anchored shopping centers. I like them because I remember them when I was a kid. You know, I'd go grocery shopping with my mom. Those are the everyday need things. You have that reinforcement, and you have all that traffic that comes all the time. Plus, you got about 60,000 cars a day on Wadsworth and about 30,000 cars a day on 38th Avenue. All those things, I think, make that corner, that Wadsworth Boulevard, pretty powerful from a demand standpoint. If you go up and down Wadsworth Boulevard, you don't see a lot of opportunities for retail, new retail up and down Wadsworth Boulevard. That's one of the reasons why we've spent the money that we have pursuing this project from a planning and entitlement standpoint and from a contract option standpoint, so we can go ahead and bring this project to fruition. We have that kind of confidence and that faith.
Thank you. I believe. Yes, Councilman Urban.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With respect to the traffic impact of this development, can you walk through what that is? I didn't see any information relative to that. Or
Jim, would you go ahead and do that?
Could you repeat the question, please?
My question was related to the traffic impact of this development. I haven't seen anything specific as it relates to the impact of increased or decreased traffic in different areas.
So ultimately, we've done a traffic impact study, and the city is currently involved in a.
Thank you.
We've done a traffic impact study. The city is currently involved in a very detailed study of the entire Wadsworth Boulevard corridor. That's probably even more extensive from ours. But from our initial study and findings, you know, most of the traffic is there today on Wadsworth or on 38th Avenue. We're not going to generate more traffic. We're going to generate traffic in and out of our site from those existing patterns on those heavily traveled roads already.
So there won't be any increased business to the development then?
There will be. Again, the traffic's coming from
What's already
the existing patterns already on Wadsworth Boulevard. We're talking about 60,000 vehicles on Wadsworth and 30,000 vehicles on 38th Avenue every day. You know, most of the traffic coming into our site is going to be traffic captured from that pattern.
So do you want to speak at all to the
Make sure you use that microphone.
You want to
so that
speak at
folks
all
can
to
hear
the
you.
movements that we're talking about along Wadsworth Boulevard, along 38th, and what we're looking at from a standpoint of signalization and full movement and right in, right out, and what that traffic study and what CDOT supports?
So we've met with the city a couple of times to go over the traffic movements, the widening of Wadsworth Boulevard, and added laneage along there. And again, based in the CDOT and cities study for some of that. We're looking at, I had mentioned earlier, there's 20 access points to this property today. We're reducing that down to 7 to help direct traffic more efficiently into our site and through our site. Yukon Court, the city has a desire to have a signalized intersection here. So we're anticipating that will happen. We have a right-in, right-out proposed, kind of midway along 38th Avenue. Right-in, right-out access up near the shops that we've talked about extensively this evening. And then right in the center of the site, we have a full movement access point that we desire here. CDOT and the cities in support of creating a signalized access point here.
Where was that?
In the middle of the project on Wadsworth,
So
right in this area.
a block from 38th, there's going to be another lighted intersection?
Yeah, midway between 35th and 38th. This will be, this signal will go in when warranted. There's a lot of study that still has to be involved there. Our studies, our initial studies, think we're pretty close to that threshold to have a signal there, but you know, it remains to be seen as we get further in the process.
I guess to that end, it would be more comforting to me to know that this development is creating a increase in traffic to the area, as though people are coming to this development more so than they currently are. And that doesn't seem like that's the case with the information we have, is that it's sort of a wash. But I'd like to know that there's some sort of increased attraction to this corner.
Do you have a response to that, sir?
Well,
You're looking to find that. Do
Or does
you want
staff
to
have any-
kind of look at that for a little bit, and then we can move on with some
Well,
other
I
questions?
think the point that Jim was making was that nobody's stopping at the site today. I mean, there's the Wadsworth is carrying 60,000 cars a day. I mean, if they're going to stop at the site, I mean, you know, I don't know if the traffic study shows that Wadsworth's going to increase to 62,000 a day just because of this development. The site, the corridor is already heavily congested. You know, I think if your question is the site going to have traffic stopping at the site, I think there's nothing to stop at today. If you have a development there, hopefully they are going to stop, and you have plenty of traffic going by that will stop if they need to do grocery shopping or want to stop at a restaurant.
Traffic from other cities as well is really what's going back and forth. I'm going to let Mr. Starker ask a question. If you're done, Mr. Urban.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Turner, and your team for your presentation. While we're just on traffic, we do have the Wadsworth PEL study underway. If that study were to come back and say that we need to add another lane on Wadsworth Boulevard on the west side of that street, what impact would that have on your development?
As I mentioned, we've met with the city engineering and talked about the traffic. We've met with CDOT, and we've anticipated the potential widening of Wadsworth Boulevard. So we don't think that there will be anything above what we've already anticipated. There might actually be an opportunity to increase the tree lawn landscape area, because we're going to dedicate the right of way for kind of the, I guess, ultimate scenario. And some of what we've seen in the studies and feedback is that it might be less than what we were anticipating originally.
Okay, so that row of trees on Wadsworth not going away?
That's correct.
Okay. When we first talked about this project a while ago, one of the things that excited me about it was for sale residential property. I think that's a good attribute for our community and for the site. Are these sort of market rate places? Are these nicer? Will they carry any amenities, any sort of clubhouse functions, swimming pool, workout facility? Or are these just kind of drive in and get your unit and?
Well, the site plan that you see in front of you in the residential portion of this is our mixed use piece of our development, and staff was very excited about the opportunity to do market rate housing. This site plan that you see in front of you is a developer that we've been speaking with that I think the city's familiar with, and the product, they're familiar with this product. This is his site plan. So our conversations with him are, that's the direction that we want to move from a standpoint of the type of product that he'll put up here. I think it's good for our development. I think it's good for the city. It helps us to meet the mixed use portion of our zone district. Also, I think it'd be neat to have some new product up by the hospital. I think it'll sell well. I think the product that he sells in
Other communities is somewhere between $325,000 to $375,000 per unit.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
I think that's very good if we can provide that kind of housing in our community. Is this residential component? Now, when I look at your plan, it looks like you've got B, C, and D, and the grocer anchor as sort of your phase one. Do I understand that?
That's correct. Yes.
And then you would build out the whole site plan with pad sites for future development.
That's correct. The middle, just to the south of Pad D, and very likely the intersection at the corner of 35th and Wadsworth. I think might be phase 1.5. I do anticipate one of the two pads being part of our first phase also, but that we won't build. That will be built by a tenant who will lease from us. From a standpoint of the residential, we're in determination right now is how do we go ahead and deliver that 2-acre site? Do we deliver it as a super lot? Do we deliver it as a graded super lot with utilities to the site? Or do we go ahead and deliver it a row of 8 homes at a time or a row of 12 homes at a time as this developer sells his project? He's a relatively conservative man.
Okay.
But we think what he does is worth the wait. So.
And I would like to reiterate the comments that have come from some of our other counselors here, and I'm sure that is shared by many of the members of our community, that this is one of the highest profile largest development products that we have in our center city. And as I went through the architectural and site design guidelines, the thing that really stuck out was the word quality development, quality design, high quality design, high quality redevelopment, high quality design. At some points in looking at your sketches that we've done, it was sort of 2-color split face CMU with some stucco, and you've shown us some different renderings tonight. Parenthetically, it's really hard to sort of sit up here and look at a visual presentation and be asked to make a decision based upon what we feel is a quality design. And I don't know if you want to speak to that, speak to you've got natural slate, I guess, planned on the walls and some ground face materials and some hard coat stucco, and I guess we've got stone. Is this the natural stone or the synthetic stone? I guess that's the little panel that we have at your feet.
Well, I think that it's probably best that the architects speak to the design, but what I can tell you is that I think the buildings are beautiful. I think some of the elements we're trying to create are iconic from a standpoint of creating that identity for that 38th and Wadsworth corridor. The buildings are expensive to build. The four-sided architecture is very expensive to build. In addition to similarities between other mixed-use zone codes in other cities, the city of Wheat Ridge has even a more stringent mixed-use zone code with reference to building materials, what those building materials are, how much your building can be covered with EIFS, which is essentially stucco, but stucco is a little bit more expensive application, and that's what we're talking about here. So this is even a more restrictive mixed-use zone code than we've experienced in other cities. So to talk to the architecture, I think it's best to let an expert talk to the architecture and maybe have Ken answer some of those questions.
Thank you. The buildings here do articulate different type of materials.
And I think we're having trouble hearing you. I'm hearing a lot of mumbling out there. Yeah, thank you.
Yes. The materials suggested here are sort of ensemble of different type finishes we discussed. These are quality materials that you see throughout the community, Denver and Denver at large. We've done a number of shopping centers, and we do other different type of projects throughout the country. and this is going to be a expensive building, expensive in the sense of dollar per square foot. They're quality buildings as far as the design, and we've tried to utilize or provide some materials that have some regional feel to it and address the character and the uniqueness of the development.
Thank you.
Mr. DiTullio, well, Mr. Fitzgerald, thank you, Mr. DiTullio.
We are familiar with this housing developer. As they look at this plan, I don't see any guest parking or any parking other than the garages that go with the units. Is there any, what do you plan for guest parking at this housing development?
Well, to answer that question is I don't know where the guest parking is. I haven't delved into other than talking about the initial economics, but let Jim.
There is some guest parking. Because this is part of the future phase, we have screened that back. But there's parking along these three sides of the perimeter of the project. Kind of like parallel parking along a street. The driveway that's shown here is wider than what's normally just used for access. And then internal, there's a few guest parking spaces along these other driveways as well. But the perimeter of the project is open parking.
Was that Mr. DiTullio?
So I want to bring this back around to the TIF again, because really we're talking about is money from the taxes from this property to fund it. So here's my dilemma here. Over the years, we've heard that the city of Wheat Ridge is not diverse enough with its large boxes with regards to retail grocery stores. And there's a retail grocery store at 38th and Wadsworth, right across the street. It's the Safeway. And it's been mentioned what the other retail grocer is here. So my question is when you do your pro forma and you're looking at the data, and you say this is a greatly traveled street, it's a lot of traffic. I don't understand why with the Safeway and 2 King Supers and the Sprouts coming online on Kipling soon, and then a Vitamin Cottage and some other grocery stores that are around the area. And by the way, I'm not trying to pick on you or pick on Urban Renewal Authority. I know you guys have been working hard on this. This is just my dilemma here for the past 20 years of understanding how this goes. Is how do we not know that really the revenue on this is really not going to be new revenue? It's going to be just more cannibalized from the other locations around it.
I have asked you to be respectful
because
of
my
the
concern is
conversations here. Hold on, mister. I've asked you to be respectful, and we're going to go through a lot of your opportunities to speak, and we want that to happen. I don't want to have to clear the room. So please be respectful of who is speaking.
So my point is if this was, I think what Mr. Urban was trying to get at, if this was a destination anchor, you had something that was going to be here that was a new service or a new amenity within the city of Wheat Ridge, and we're not settling for one more retail grocer. Like I said, I don't care if it's Walmart or anybody else. I'm talking about retail grocers in general. I could see this being a destination and bringing in new dollars, but it's kind of a conflict of what you've said, because you said there's a lot of traffic here, which should generate a lot of interest, but yet we're putting something there that's already on the other corner. And so I don't want to trade one for the other. That's all I'm saying. So I'm having a hard time wrapping around my head to take tax money at that amount for this project when you've had the retail anchors say no, they don't want to be part of the public improvements. I think that you have to find another source of revenue to fund this project. I have no problem with the layout. I have no problem with the buildings, no problem with the residential. My concern is that it's coming all down on that 3% sales tax that the city has, and I think that you'd have to look at other funding options besides that sales tax. I think it's too much of a risk for the taxpayers, because $7.8 million is 1/5 of our yearly budget, because we're at 40 to 46 million. So with other projects coming online, like the Kipling project and Vitamin Cottage and other retail and commercial projects in the city, I don't see why we have to jump on this. I would hope that you could find other funding mechanisms and other anchors that would be more of a draw to this place, so it is successful. And that's kind of where I'm at on this right now. And so I don't necessarily know that you'd have to answer that, but I have a concern that the property owners you're paying too much based on what you've told me, and that's going to affect how much money you need to make this cash flow, and the fact that the biggest anchor, who has the biggest budget, and please don't clap, doesn't want to be part of the public improvements on this. That's my concern.
Well, I think if I can answer your question, and I think I'm going to rephrase it, is how do we determine sales tax revenues based on what you see in front of you? Is that a fair enough?
That's fair
is that
enough.
a fair enough
With a grocery store across the
characterization?
street, right.
Okay. Well, we have consultants who do studies for us. The consultant who did the study on this project is BBC Research and Consultant, BBC Research. And so they're a national research and consultancy firm. They work all throughout the country. Our consultant on this is Adam Orens, and he's a partner at BBC Research. So I asked Adam, I said, Adam, tell me a little bit about this project. How are we going to go ahead? How do we look at the sales tax dollars that will be generated from this? He said, well, Bob, let's first start with the grocer. I said, okay, so you've got a 42,000 square foot grocery store here. What does Adam do? Adam looks at grocery store sales, average grocery store sales on a per square foot basis throughout the country, and then he plugs a number in. On a grocery store, the average per square foot sales number is about $500 a square foot. Now let me make a comparison with other retailers of similar size. Other retailers of similar size, maybe you have a Sports Authority, you have a Ross, or you have some other retailer of that similar size. What kind of sales per square foot will that store do? I think the Urban Land Institute will tell you that a store like that will do about 40% of the annual sales as a grocery store will. So about $200 a square foot, maybe a little less, 190, 180, plus or minus. So what we did on this analysis, I said, Adam, I want to be conservative here. I want you to take off 25%, a little bit more than 25% of those sales, and that's what I want you to factor in what you think that number is going to look like. I said, what do you think? He said, well, maybe it's 15, maybe it's 20. I said, I want you to go 25%. Take a quarter off and plug that number from a sales tax standpoint into your revenue for this project. So that's what we did with respect to that. With respect to the other tenants on the corner, we used ULI numbers. Important in that respect is you might have let's say it's a small 1,500 square foot retailer where $450,000 a year or $300 a square foot is good sales. For us, it's those restaurants, those generators that are going to bring us the traffic, they will pay us the rents, because those restaurants will do in the neighborhood of $500, $700, $800 a square foot. That's important for us from a rental standpoint. I think it's also important from the TIF and the repayment standpoint. So if that answered your question, how do we come up with those numbers? That's where those numbers come from.
So I get that, and I understand that. So my only last comment, and you don't have to address this now, is that I think, for me personally, as a resident and a taxpayer and as a councilman, I would like to see your group, Urban Renewal Authority, look at a different or an alternative or a combination of funding of the $7.8 million rather than strictly off the 3% sales tax in the city. Because I think it's too much of a risk with this type of development. The economy changes, one more terrorist attack or something else, and this thing is going south. So all I'm suggesting is that I hope you can look around and look for other possible funding mechanisms besides the taxpayers for this project, whether it's half or full or whatever it is. That's all I'm suggesting.
Okay.
Genevieve.
I have one quick question. On the residential development, you said 325 to 375 townhomes, correct?
Correct, yeah.
And does that builder know who this retail grocer
yes,
is?
You bet.
And is still interested in going forward?
You bet. Yeah, I mean, with the upgraded elevations, buffering, landscaping, this is his plan, and that plan was put together prior to our many rounds of iteration with staff on what these elevations are going to look like.
Okay, I just wanted to know that developer was aware of what's going on.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. We've had many conversations. What? Are there further questions of the builder? No? What about, you had one? Yeah, we will move to that. Does staff has anything that would like to report, or can you answer questions as we need them?
Yeah, we're.
Okay. Question of staff? Mr. Urban?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With respect to the redevelopment plan that we are making an amendment to tonight that's being proposed, that's the Wadsworth Corridor redevelopment plan. The 38th Corridor plan is separate from that, and the 38th Avenue redevelopment plan is also separate, so there's 3 separate plans. Which is the guiding document for this property?
Well, I think there's more than one guiding document. There's the city's comprehensive plan, which includes the 38th Avenue corridor plan as an amendment, and then the Wadsworth Boulevard corridor redevelopment plan is also that's an urban renewal guiding document. So there's those 3 documents really.
So I guess my concern is that the Wadsworth Corridor redevelopment plan, as presented, adopted in 2001, states that it is in conformance with the city's comprehensive plan based on what it was in 2001. That doesn't take into consideration the revised comprehensive plan in 2009. And so if we're making an amendment to this plan, why wouldn't we also reconfirm that conformance with the comprehensive plan? Because it doesn't seem.
I'll let Mr. Johnson speak to that, but I believe when the new comprehensive plan was adopted, it made sure that all of the current urban renewal plans were in conformance.
Yes, that's correct, Patrick. The Wadsworth, the citywide comprehensive plan is fairly general in nature, but it designated Wadsworth as a primary commercial corridor, as a mixed-use town center, specified general land uses, designated this site as medium to high density mixed use development, and by our standards we would certainly think that this would meet that definition. I think the other compelling document really is the 38th Avenue corridor plan, which is the most recently adopted comprehensive plan at a city level. That was adopted in 2011, and of course you saw the graphic for that, which made a real distinguishment for this site as opposed to the Main Street that was desired to be created along 38th, and saying that this site could support more auto-oriented, more intensive, more retail-anchored uses as opposed to smaller shops that we might want to encourage on 38th Avenue. So the point of that being in part that we didn't want this site to really compete with Main Street, we wanted it to complement Main Street so it can generate activity that then can bleed over onto 38th Avenue while attracting different tenants than 38th Avenue likely would.
Okay. I guess my other concern with respect to the Wadsworth Corridor redevelopment plan is that it states in there explicitly that it is assuming the current operation of a car dealership on that corner as it relates to that particular area of the plan. That's not the case. That was 15 years ago. So it seems in some ways that this redevelopment plan is in many ways outdated to be able to adopt a TIF agreement based on that outdated plan.
I think that you're correct. That portion of it, I don't think it again, it's a guiding document, and I believe the document I read it earlier today, is if the dealership is part of the plan, this is how it could look. I think the plan as it's stated today is still accurate because it talks about a commercial center with or without an auto dealership.
Okay. I guess the other concern that I have is when you look at the 38th Avenue corridor plan, and it was brought up by the developer as it references the intersection at 38th and Wadsworth in that particular property, it talks about wanting to encourage sort of a mixed-use design, and even in the corridor plan as it's written, it seems as though it's sort of the residential is adjacent to this development, not necessarily integrated into the development. It's somewhat segregated, and that's a concern to me, is that it seems as though we have a retail development and residential adjacent to that, which isn't anything new to development. It seems as though it could be better served to have actually more mixed use as opposed to somewhat segregated, even as it appears in the 30th Avenue corridor plan. So that's my concerns.
Councilmember Davis, you had indicated.
Yeah, so I just have a quick question for staff. So basically, a portion of the resolution, and I know I have to make the motion tonight, and I have little things to it, but a part of this resolution is just for us to approve the first amendment to the Wadsworth Boulevard plan. So basically, we're starting, as we referred to last week, we're just starting the clock ticking on that the urban renewal plan would start, and it would only allow for the limited time as outlined in the urban renewal plan. So basically, the clock's ticking for this site, for us to begin negotiations, discussions, reviewing of plans of what this would look like if TIF was decided upon. But it's not necessarily a blanket approval.
No, yeah, actually, tonight, the only thing that you're supposed to be approving is an amendment to the Wadsworth Corridor Plan, which, as you states, allows for an urban renewal tool, tax increment financing, to start. But you know, we did provide much more of a presentation tonight just because of the controversy of the project. But you know, we're not talking tonight about traffic or landscaping or lighting or even building facades. This is just to allow Urban Renewal Authority to have the tool available to negotiate an agreement with the developer. That agreement will have to come back for final approval.
They're giving me all these signals, and it's my microphone. I want to repeat that as I said, it's very important that what we're voting on tonight is to whether to allow that tool available to us. It does not mean we're approving of any master plan, that there will be further negotiations through urban renewal, as well as probably coming back to council as well. Mr. DiTullio.
Mr. Dahl, so if this resolution passed tonight, does the actual agreement, if there was TIF, that has to come back to city council for one more vote?
Yes, that's right.
And then connect, if the motion was made tonight to add conditions and changes and other negotiation tools, that could be done tonight with the idea that your staff would go back to the developer and negotiate different financing methods, TIF, whatever, then that would have to come back to city council eventually too.
Sure. I mean, you can certainly direct staff to incorporate those considerations in the negotiations that will happen if you make the TIF tool available, which is really all that happens tonight is the TIF tool is available. Then agreements have to be negotiated based upon your making the tool available. You can certainly instruct staff regarding what other things you want them to
other tools
add to the negotiations.
Other tools?
Before the development agreement is brought back.
Mr. Pond?
Yeah, I'm just going to continue that line of questioning just for a second and just ask staff to fill in a little bit. So as we go through this, which is really, as stated, just really this TIF issue, although there has been some conversation, and I truly appreciate seeing more of the plan. You know, it's not my job or any of our jobs, I suppose, to get up here and really get into the detailed design elements. But I will ask, since I think there's comments even from up here, and I have several of them, and I'm sure there's comments out there that relate to some aspects of the design. How would you see those conversations happening? How would the feedback either from tonight or moving forward, how would those conversations move forward so that we could find either resolution or solution to any comments that relate to site planning, design elements, etc.?
Yeah, I mean, those, you know, the applicant is here, so they've heard everything you've said. So it's you know, it's a discussion we can have. Honestly, you know, each had different comments. There needs to be a consensus if there's one thing that you want us to concentrate on. 'Cause honestly, I don't know if I've heard too many strong direction in one way or the other that this needs to be fixed or this needs to be fixed. But if that's some kind of direction you want to give staff, that we can continue that discussion with the applicant.
So as we go through the rest of this meeting, obviously hearing public testimony as part of this public hearing, and then and come to a point of deliberation and conversation, we have an opportunity here maybe to try to build some consensus. Is that correct?
I'm sorry, can you repeat your question?
No.
The city attorney's talking to me.
I saw that. No, I'm saying in the process of this evening, as we go through and we've heard the applicants, and we've had a chance to ask questions of the applicant. We're asking questions of staff right now, and we're about at some point to go into public hearing and hear public comment. After that, when the public hearing is closed, we will discuss and deliberate. At that point, if we can provide some consensus to those items, that would then provide direction for you moving forward.
Correct, and you know, just to make it clear that, you know, we've been given direction from council and previous councils and this council to streamline our development processes as much as possible to be business friendly in this community. We have a mixed use zoning in place that provides all the details that an applicant and developer needs to know to develop a site. So we try to make that as easy as possible for a developer. You guys adopted the mixed-use zoning plan, you adopted the comprehensive plan, you adopted all these corridor plans that provide the general direction that you would like to see these developments go. So tonight is unusual. We would not usually go over a project in this much detail, but obviously you're being asked to provide public funding, so that's very important that you need to know what the project is so you can decide if you're going to support that or not. So if you give us consensus tonight, we'll work with the developer on making some changes if we have a consensus tonight. But my understanding is those won't come back for council for final review if we give direction to move forward. The TIF, any funding obviously would, any funding requests, but the only thing that's going to come back to City Council at this point for this development is a subdivision plat. Is that correct?
I believe we're ready for
site plan review is administrative, but what Patrick is saying is that, and typically that's just administrative. You've provided for the zoning, and so people build within those guidelines. But I think the reason for the additional presentation on the site is that there is the request for public money, and so as a result, what you have to say and what you kind of direct staff is going to certainly be incorporated into the discussions on the funding side, which is really why we're here tonight.
Okay, it is 9:30 and I have 40 people signed up for public comment. I think we're going to need to do a very short break and then we will have public comment. When I say short, I mean by 9:45 we will start public comment, and we'll have some new rules and regs for that. Okay. Tim? Where is he? We can start without him. We can just start without him. We're missing Tim, one of our council members. He's here. Okay, we're going to go ahead. Regarding public comment, once again, I'm asking you to be respectful to each other as well as to the members of your council. We listen to these comments very wholeheartedly, are involved and want to hear what you have to say. Cheering or yelling or whatever does not make any difference because we are really listening to what you have to say. And it just it drags out the whole process. Because there are so many of you, we're going to limit it to 2 minutes. And if that's not enough, please ask a neighbor to maybe contribute 2 minutes and give you that extra time. But at how many we have, we're looking here at a couple of hours of comment. So none of us will be listening very well after that much time. So let's start with, and actually I'm not going to call names because that takes more time. Just please come up and give your name and address. And please line up.
My name is Mary Krause, and it's 7245 West 32nd Place.
Yeah, you have to speak up, Mary.
Mary Krause, 7245 West 32nd Place. And I understand that you've all done a lot of work on this project, 3 years, and everything looks beautiful. I would make one comment in that is our cornerstone, our jewel for the city. And if you would just change your lead store to an REI with maybe a park all around it, the city would be behind you. We'd have a community place to gather. But I don't see putting in a grocery store when we just spent tax dollars developing Safeway to where it's a beautiful place now. We'd just be biting off our nose to spite our face. So I would like to see the tax dollars that we've spent cleaning up that site be saved and preserved so that that precious land can be used as a place where all generations can go and enjoy it. There are other retail stores that will bring in business and not take business away from our existing tax revenue drive. So I'm pleading with you not to spend more tax money doing something that I think is not in the best interest. We have Walmart just overserved in this neighborhood already. And if Walmart wants to be in Wheat Ridge and Wheat Ridge wants Walmart somewhere, there's other land around that they can come to. We don't have to give the best piece of it up to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. And Mary did kind of confine her comments to taxes, tax money, which is what this is about. It's the TIF, tax increment financing. And your name, sir?
Yeah, my name is Chris Munske, M-U-N-Z-K-E, 3374 Zephyr Court. And I will make it really quick. I'm not going to talk about the merits of the plan itself. That's not what we're deciding tonight. There are just 2 key points that I wanted to mention. First of all is, as you all know, the Planning Commission has already denied this project's conformance to the city's comprehensive plan. They highlighted 2 paragraphs and said, I think this shows that we're in conformance. I believe the Planning Committee probably knows whether they're in conformance or not. So I got the feeling that Mom said no, and they wanted to ask Dad, is why they're here tonight. The second point that I have is on the TIF directly. My understanding from reading the minutes of, I believe, 2 meetings ago, is that Vitamin Cottage has chosen to come to Wheat Ridge without the benefit of the TIF. And when I see that, the things that immediately jump out at me are the businesses are willing to come to Wheat Ridge without being granted a TIF. And I think we need to keep that in mind and not sell ourselves short. Granting a TIF now to one business sends the message to all future businesses that they can get a TIF. So think of what precedents you're setting if you decide to grant this. And what I really get concerned about is giving an unfair advantage to certain businesses over others. If we grant TIF to certain businesses and developments and not others, I think that really is a slippery slope. And how do people, future businesses, look at that? That either they'll be given a TIF too, and they'll think of us as giving out free money, or that Wheat Ridge supports some businesses at the expense of others. So really think about what message we're sending if we decide to grant this. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Next speaker.
My name is Amy Klingenberg, and I'm also at 3374 Zephyr Court. It's Klingen, B as in boy, ERG. And I have questions I'm not sure if I can ask, but I'm not sure how tied to the site plan the developer is. Is there a chance that you could grant a TIF and then he changes things in the course of development, such as the housing piece? If he's mentioned that he's selling that to another developer for development, so it seems like that's a really kind of loose piece.
Well, Amy, we don't
you're
really
not contracting with him.
We don't usually do dialogue, but when we look at the final plans, as that moves along, we will be
Would we be tied
approving
to
a
47
final plan.
condos? And he mentioned that that developer that he's reselling to sells in other places for $315 to $325. He's never said that these condos would sell for that amount. So I just want to be clear in what was communicated. That, yeah, that's all.
All right.
My name is Patrick Gooch. I live at 3863 Allison Circle, just a couple of 3 blocks from the proposed development. The jewel of Wheat Ridge is actually an eyesore there. On behalf of my wife and myself, we are wholeheartedly hoping that you will approve the TIF and turn that property into an urban, proud jewel of Wheat Ridge. We also invested as a business and took a business that was under duress as well, and we feel turned it into a nice property in Wheat Ridge, and that is our business at 7700 West 44th Avenue. Yes, we'd like to probably have a Trader Joe's or a Whole Food. They got $20 million on the table to get this done. Why wait 3 or 4 more years and take the bet that somebody else is going to, show up with this same kind of deal? Walmart this mystery grocer is the biggest retailer in the country. It employs more people, I think, than anyone, and it employs a lot of seniors. And I just want to say on behalf of seniors, it gives them a lot of confidence, it gives them a lot of income, and allows them to have a better lifestyle. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
My name is Mary Ann Stork. It's S as in Sam, T as in Tom, O-R-C-K. I live at 4120 Balsam Street, and I'm urging council to vote against this TIF because it's a slippery slope. You'll vote for this TIF, and the next thing I'll know, I'll have to swallow that bitter pill of Walmart at that corner. What I see here tonight is a plan that's based on what's worked in the past. It's a mold, and now we're just going to drop in things as quickly as we can, and it's going to create not new traffic to the area, but hopefully, as Jerry had mentioned earlier, traditional traffic robbing from other stores who are then going to go to these stores. Why can't we get something more creative? Instead of going through this hurriedly and filling in those slots with national brand things, think outside of the box. Think outside of the box and really make it a jewel that brings in the new traffic and new business to Wheat Ridge.
Thank you, Mary Ann.
Hi, my name is Jerry Nealon. I live at 12575 West 2nd Avenue, and I'm a business owner in Wheat Ridge. I own commercial property in Wheat Ridge. I own residential property in Wheat Ridge. I grew up in Wheat Ridge. Been here all my life, plan to stay here. This is a great thing. I think the city finally has a chance to do something right, get in there and help a developer. It's a win-win-win. There's always, yes, there's some risk involved. let's share the risk a little bit. Let's get something in there. Everybody wants this magical thing or Trader Joe's to show up. That place has been sitting there for 15 years and nothing's happened yet. It's time to get off the stick. Let's make something happen. Let's make it nice and let's make the best out of it. We got to have an anchor for other businesses to survive. There's a lot of other businesses in Wheat Ridge that are afraid to come up here and speak because you're their clientele. There's a lot of anti-Walmart Semitism out there. So, you know, they're behind this development also. So I just urge you to move forward. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jerry. Next speaker.
Good evening, Vivian Voss, VOS, 6920 West 47th Place. Let's talk about the mechanics of what tax increment financing really is. I'm reading from published works. Few Coloradoans have any idea how much money is diverted away from counties, school districts, and special districts and into the pockets of urban renewal area projects. If people knew the details in urban renewal authorities, many would say urban renewal authorities have become an example of dishonest government. Urban renewal authorities had their birth in federal law in the 1940s. Their purpose was, quote, the elimination of substandard and other inadequate housing through the clearance of slum and blighted areas. Now we see that neighborhoods are using urban renewal authorities for an economic development tool. They appear in affluent neighborhoods, subsidizing big box retailers and shopping malls. And since most cities are using tax increment financing, businesses can play them off against each other to boost the handouts they receive simply to operate profit-making enterprises. Although politicians portray TIFs as a great way to boost the local economy, there are hidden costs they don't want taxpayers to know about. Cities generally assume they are not really giving anything up because the foregone tax revenue would not have been available in the absence of development. That assumption is often wrong. One more quote. There is always this exception with TIFs that the economic growth is a way to create jobs and grow the economy and then push the costs across the public spectrum. But what is missing here is that the cost of developing private business has some public costs. Road and sewers and schools are public costs that come from growth. Spending is likely
I'm sorry,
to rise.
that's the end.
Yeah, I'll just finish this. Spending is likely to rise as the local
Vivian,
population grows. The burden of paying
Vivian.
taxes will be shifted to other taxpayers, adding insult to injury. Thank you.
Kathy Tolman at 4735 Reed Street. I'm speaking against the TIF. I support natural grocers coming in without a TIF. I think that that is a good thing. I am concerned about our property tax values, especially from Sheridan to Wadsworth, because if you lose 2 schools and add a Walmart, our property taxes and our property values tank. So we have to consider that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Asia Tolvi at 3835 Garland Street. I just wanted to say that I'm opposed to TIF for this project. To me, it looks like it's just lipstick on a pig. It's just another strip mall. I encourage you to drive up to Colfax and Wadsworth and see what's going on there. That's exactly what we're going to get. We're going to get a bunch of fast food chains. We're going to have empty stores. We're going to have a Walmart. Thanks.
Thank you.
My name is Joseph Buckles, and I live at 3690 Chase Street. And basically, my concern is a Safeway across the street because that's an established tax base, and I don't see much point in creating one on the west side and possibly closing the Safeway on the east side of Wadsworth and putting people who are actually getting a living wage out of work. And Safeway is a large conglomerate like Walmart. Well, doesn't get the same funding or doesn't draw out the same amount of money, but they won't compete with, they're not going to compete with Walmart. They're just going to close the store. They're not going to lower their prices to compete. They'll just close the store and we'll have a big box there with who's going to move in. So you're going to create a tax base one place and possibly lose it somewhere else. Anyway, that's all I've said.
Thank you, Joseph.
Hi, I am Johanna Buckles. I'm at 4070 Fenton Court. I oppose the TIF. I don't want my tax money going towards building a Walmart, please. Also, I have to agree with her on the corner, the northwest corner of Colfax and Wadsworth. There's going to be fast food restaurants. We don't want any more fast food restaurants. If you guys want to put in something in Wheat Ridge that people want to go to, it's not Walmart and fast food restaurants. Also, I don't know if any of you guys live 3 blocks from a Walmart, but I do. I live next to the Walmart by Lakeside, and there was a grocery cart in my front lawn 2 weeks ago from Walmart. So people that live 3 blocks from where this is going to be, those are the kind of things that are going to happen if you live close to a Walmart. So again, don't want my tax money going towards more grocery carts and other people's front lawns and stuff like that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Victoria Lundy. I live at 3500 Allison Street, and I'm opposed to the TIF. But first of all, I would like to say that a dog and pony show is not an official plan, and that citizens were kept from seeing the filed plan in advance, despite a Colorado Open Records request, and it really makes us wonder about the transparency of this process. But I will make no bones about the fact that I object to a Walmart neighborhood grocer, and I think that we are cannibalizing our other grocery stores, and we're also cannibalizing a TIF we just granted to Sprouts. So that doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. And also, I wanted to actually even address the corridor redevelopment plan, which was instituted in 2001, I believe. It's another world right now. I mean, it's 2015, and we have different economic realities than we had when that was instituted. The plan presented and the track record of the developer makes me think that we're going to get a 90s strip mall. It isn't forward-looking. It isn't attractive. It doesn't really make a lot of sense to me for it to look like that. It's sort of a 90s strip mall with a patio. So I'm wondering if that's what we really need for the 21st century in Wheat Ridge. And I'm sort of wondering if we are actually taking into account the fact that our demographics are changing, that the citizenry is becoming younger, and people with higher incomes are moving in. And I don't know that this development will reflect that, or that it'll suit those people, or it'll serve those people, and it'll serve the city that we can become. I think that it could be the last straw in creating another dying suburb.
Another 10 seconds.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tom Lundy. I live at 3500 Allison Street. I'm here to urge you to reject this TIF, either to indefinitely propose it, postpone it, or reject it. And I'm doing so on the basis of the untransparent and unclear and unopen way in which this decision has been made. The developers, as of this very afternoon, had done nothing with the Planning Commission as far as filing any additional plans. I checked with that. I've checked every week. Nothing in addition. Also, you know, as we've discussed several times, when Jesse Hill, Urban Renewal Commissioner, requested to see the original TIF request with the Colorado Open Record Act request, he was denied in entirety by Steve Art and the Urban Planning Commission in a perhaps illegal move. Also, I want to ask, why are the developers being allowed to write their own ticket now? What happened to the Envision Wheat Ridge plan, which they're supposedly supposed to conform to on November 18th, and which they failed to demonstrate any confirmation with? So I urge you to deny this TIF, and I think there will be bad repercussions for the city and for the careers of the elected officials here if you continue on this tack. 2A and 2B field for a reason, and you're just building on that reason.
Thank you.
Good evening, Luann Canjar, Canjar,
3055 Webster. And I hope you deny the TIF. I think the tax base for the city of Wheat Ridge, or the monies available need to be put towards something more worthy than corporate welfare to an institution the size of Walmart. If anybody can afford to come into a development without TIF money, it's Walmart. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Maureen Daly, D-A-L-Y. I live at 3620 Otis Street. And thank you, Mayor Jay, City Council. As a public health physician, I feel our jobs in many ways are similar. We have been entrusted by the public to implement policies that are for the good of the people, based on the best information available. We need to solicit community input along the way, be transparent in our efforts, and consult the experts before making decisions. Paramount is to do no harm. So I have 3 questions, and maybe 2 if I run out of time. This is my visual aid tonight. First and foremost, will approving the TIF benefit the community? Currently, the city generates $121,000 a year in tax revenue from the property and nothing in sales tax. That's the green. As I understand it from the TIF study session last week, once the clock starts on the TIF, any additional property or sales tax revenue generated over and above this base would go to the Urban Renewal Authority and developers to develop the property. Not the city, not to our schools, not to other improvement projects. So therefore, the tax revenue generated from the property for the city would remain the same as it is today, as I understood it. In fact, I believe it's possible that the property values of the surrounding homes might actually go down, and then the city would potentially have a loss of property tax revenue from this deal. The developers, on the other hand, would stand to gain, and this was from the figures y'all provided, up to $1.1 million a year in tax subsidies for a number of years. And we, the citizens, would be left with a big box store, more fast food restaurants, and worsening traffic on Wadsworth. My second point is, are you going to listen to the experts when you're making this decision? The Wheat Ridge Planning Commission voted 4-2 to deny the resolution this past December. It was their expert opinion that the plan was too vague.
Pat.
They're the experts. Please listen to them. Keep going. Is that allowed?
He's contributing his time.
Okay. It was their expert opinion that the plan presented was too vague to make a determination whether it conformed to the comprehensive plan. As I understand it, it is the role of the Planning Commission to determine if a project conforms to the comprehensive plan. Well, they have rejected the plan. Third, do you have all the information you need to make a good decision? The purpose of TIF funding is to eliminate blight and prevent the spread of blight. I think Mr. Urban brought up an excellent point last week. Mr. DiTullio has brought it up this week when suggesting that the development actually might lead to more blight if Safeway shuts down. I believe the current plan will not benefit Wheat Ridge, and therefore I ask you not to approve this TIF. I am hopeful that great minds can come together, work with the developers, come up with a proposal that would be supported by the community, enhance the neighborhood, build on the efforts that have already underway on the ridge at 38, and speak to the uniqueness of Wheat Ridge. Thanks very much.
Thank you. I think we've been through that.
Really quick. Nathan Mender, 3601 Teller. I concur with everything she says. I don't I don't necessarily disagree with the TIF as used as a tool for financing redevelopment, but the city of Wheat Ridge has to get something out of it, and this plan, in my opinion, falls short.
Thank you, Nathan.
Todd Friesen, 4330 Gray Street. I prepared for 3 minutes, so we'll see how it goes. There are many things that first attracted my family to moving into Wheat Ridge about 11 years ago. There was a small town feel, a sense of rudeness to the community, and we were given indicators that the city was willing to improve. This was confirmed soon after as our street hosted the first house flip that Wheat Ridge 2020 invested in. As we learned more about Wheat Ridge 2020, we became excited about the initiatives they were setting into motion, which included the expansion and improvement of 38th Ave. And over the years, we've had the privilege of seeing their hard work pay off. So when our family heard about the proposal to take the old Ford property and convert it into a Walmart, we became confused. What seemed like such a clear vision of the city of Wheat Ridge only a few months ago suddenly seems to be blowing away like the Walmart shopping bags we see strewn along 44th and Harlan almost daily. Did you know that Lakeside's Walmart is less than 2 miles away from this proposed spot? Why would they want to halt the progress that they've made in making 38th Ave as vibrant as it is today? After all, we've seen how transformative the crime, trash, and traffic has made Lakeside's little community due to Walmart, not to mention how it's obliterated the businesses along 44th and Harlan, and we've had to ask ourselves, why would Wheat Ridge want to do the same thing? So members of City Council, I ask you to consciously examine the proposal being made by Steve Art and his development company and ask yourself the following questions. How will Walmart help maintain the small town rooted feel that 38th Ave provides? What will you do when businesses are forced to close because they can't compete with the literal shadow that Walmart will hang over their heads? How will you attract more businesses along 38th Ave when Walmart closes the current ones? How will you explain to taxpayers that they will be expected to pay for the TIF to expand the Wadsworth corridor while the most profitable retail store in the history of the world sits idly by, pays almost nothing, waiting for it to be completed? How will you justify the increased crime, traffic, trash, and poor treatment of workers that Walmart will inevitably bring to their new neighborhood? I ask you these questions because it's a matter of time before they'll have to be answered. It happens every time a Walmart moves in. I've got some suggestions, but I don't have time, so thank you.
Thank you. Your name, sir?
Hello, Rick Somerville. I represent 3 properties on Allison, Carr, and Skyline Drive. And I was also prepared for 3 minutes, so we'll see how this goes. This is more than just about Walmart for me and everyone I know. It's about a vague, disappointing, single-story retail complex with a big parking lot. Sorry. Tonight we saw the first look at the buildings. I think I got a little rectangle poisoning. Slate tile or not, it just doesn't have any character. It's old-style thinking, in my opinion. At first, in early meetings, I thought Bob was just maybe uninformed, like he hadn't seen other places. He asked publicly, what's so special about Highland? He lives in Littleton and likes it. Not the Old Town part, by the way. Nothing about this matches down to, the Old Town or the 38th Corridor plan.
Sir, please, let's not be.
Well, okay.
I do
Mayor Jay,
understand what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Well, across the country, cities are redeveloping rail yards and industrial areas of similar size into town centers and marketplaces. Jefferson Park at 23rd and Federal is filling with new high-end modern lofts. They've restored old buildings, put in coffee shops, walkable spaces and restaurants. The new Rhino District east of Coors Field is going from slum to plum. Very profitable, I'm sure. So how about a development that doesn't require to demo the dealership building, like Faneuil Hall in Boston or the upscale St. George's Market in Belfast? The city's participated in 38th, and some businesses have got mad, but seems like Quadrant's getting free rein. What are you worried about? It's going to get developed. It'll go as the area booms, which is already happening. You're the present city council, and the decisions you're making are having permanent effects. The city threw open the doors to anyone a while ago using a plan from 2001 or 2011 and earlier. I totally agree it needs to be updated. You're inviting national chains versus local. That thinking just doesn't seem to fit new, rapidly changing demographics. So I don't know if we've done any recent demographic or real estate studies studying the boom moving west from Berkeley and Highland. Have we done anything to attract young and higher incomes in the city? Does this? You can view citizens that attend these meetings as a nuisance, or a minority view, but I don't think that's the truth. So Quadrant's not doing this for charity. They're a for-profit developer. Bob said in past meetings he needs TIF money.
So your time is up.
She's donated 1 minute, so I'm going to finish up really quick.
We're not doing pieces. Are you just wanting to donate your 3 minutes, or 2 minutes, excuse me?
Okay.
Oh, I understand. Okay.
Yeah, I'll be very quick. Quantum's for profit. Bob said in past meetings he needs TIF money for extraordinary expenses. Last meeting he quoted, I wrote down that he said it's for moving dirt. Moving dirt is not an extraordinary expense for a developer, in my opinion. Interesting, if Quadrant impacts nearby wells, homeowners will have to fight for their water rights. Under Colorado water law, each homeowner will probably have to spend $20,000 to $30,000 hiring water engineers and lawyers to quantify and prove damage and litigate. That's terrible. Wouldn't it be ironic if their own tax money was used to create that problem? Bob is crying that this project is at the edge of profitability he has in every meeting. So would I. Do you really know? What experts are we listening to besides Bob? So this soon-to-boom area has strong potential without tax money, and he knows it, I would think. A TIF would just make it much more lucrative. If a TIF isn't granted and Quadrant chooses to walk away, that could open the door for newer style development that fits the newer demographics coming to Wheat Ridge. If they stay without TIF, then we know they really didn't need it. So, has anyone counted the number of empty stores in the Safeway complex? I mean, there's a few over there as well. So, while TIF may have been granted, this whole thing, is it needed? Is it needed in its present form? So if you decide to give tax money to a single private company to deliver what I think the community largely opposes, I'm certain that you'll really hear from residents. They spoke in the last election on taxes. Mayor Jay, I'm sorry that you heard what you did last meeting with having to bang your gavel, but you will hear from citizens. I hope for everyone's benefit that you're really listening. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you for being respectful. I appreciate that. Sir?
Hello, my name is Eckhard Kohler, and I live at 3303 Yarrow Court. I am against the TIF. I don't believe that it's needed to be profitable for their presentation. It may be needed now to be profitable. I've lived in Colorado since 1997. Many of you may have been here longer. Since 1997, I've been building homes in commercial spaces for other companies and developers. What I have found since 1997 is that property prices continue to rise, home prices continue to rise. Even with the economy dropping and then regaining itself, home sales are back to where they were. So what does this say about property in general? The property value in Colorado is going up. Why is it going up? Because younger generations continue to move to Colorado. What this is doing is projecting a growth for the population of the state to double in the next 35 years. Do I think one of the crown jewel corners in Wheat Ridge needs to be developed now with a TIF? No. Does it need to be developed? Yes. Is this possibly a plan that is not in step with the population? I don't think it is in step with the population, and this is why I don't believe a TIF should be granted. With that said, who is the population that's moving here? They're younger people that are driving the population in Colorado. Younger people are finding jobs through startups, through doing their own businesses. If you look on 38th, I see young people starting restaurants in what used to be vacant buildings with cheap rent, or by building premier properties, which, I mean, from the pictures you guys show, they look nice. Are we going to provide cheap rent for young people to move into this community and have their own startup? No, we're not. And because of that, I think, again, it is the wrong fit, and that's why I don't think the TIF should be granted. I think with time, that space will be profitable for anyone to develop.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Jackie Yescas. I live at 7740 West 35th Avenue, immediately behind the field where the Walmart is proposed to be built.
Thank you.
During recess, I read the quote that you guys have in your building that states, "People create the quality of their government through participation or neglect." And for that reason, I oppose the TIF because I feel like in our community, we all need to participate, and Walmart is not bringing participation to this community. It's bringing profit. We don't need profit in Wheat Ridge. We have plenty of businesses. We're made with small businesses, and Walmart does not support small businesses. It doesn't support unions. For people that have spoken about the benefit of elderly people working at Walmart, I previously worked at Walmart. My coworker was a woman that was 65 plus. She never was allowed to take a break she was never paid overtime. They would make her take 3-hour lunches to avoid paying her overtime. So this isn't something that's going to benefit the elderly. It's not something that's going to benefit businesses. And as he previously mentioned, younger generations are moving to Wheat Ridge. I have a son, and I would rather my son not grow up staring at the parking lot of a Walmart. I would rather him grow up looking at a building or a community garden or something that creates community and builds the current community that we've built in Wheat Ridge. Thank you.
Thank you. You're trying really hard. I appreciate that.
Larry Matthews,
Hi, Larry.
3851 Hoyt Street. I have just 3 points regarding tax and tax base. Number one, it's my understanding that we're maybe breaking procedure by even voting on this tonight a little bit. I don't know if that's the truth or not. That we're maybe putting the cart before the horse. You guys can answer that better than I can, but I would raise that concern. Number two, years ago I was looking at purchasing or building a bowling alley. And there were people there that could tell me exactly how many people to the 10th of a person you needed in the immediate area to support one alley in that bowling. So if it was 1,000 people per lane, and there were 10,000 people available, I could go for 10 lanes. I know darn well there's got to be some consultant around that will tell you what the population base has to be to support square feet, so many square feet of grocer space. And I don't like, by the way, that deceptive term. It's Walmart. But we ought to take a look at that to answer the cannibalization question. How much retail space of the same type can the area support? And last, I would have a question on how far off-site does TIF money go? Because there's going to be impact more than just within the boundaries of this property. And how far down 38th, down Wadsworth, will TIF money, can that be spent to offset the impacts that this development will cause on that intersection? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Ron Kiefel, 3875 Field Drive, and also with Wheat Ridge Cyclery, and my father, Eugene. Are you going to go ahead, Eugene? I guess you're going to talk first.
My name is Eugene Kiefel. I live at 2935 Kendall Street. I've lived there for over 40 years. Right after I bought a little bike shop on 38th Avenue in 1973. Now I've gone to the various development stages of 38th. I like what I see now. I think it's about time we do something about that ugly spot that we have on 38th Avenue and Wadsworth. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dad. I do want to support the negotiation of the TIF financing. I believe that's what this on the docket today is, do you authorize Urban Renewal to go and negotiate TIF financing for our business, Wheat Ridge Cyclery. That was a very powerful tool that allowed our property taxes to go from $19,000 a year to $52,000 a year. It took about 5-6 years to pay off our TIF financing because we were able to improve our building, improve our facade, improve the business that we were doing. We also grew by $1.5 million in sales. If you take that times 3% for sales tax revenue, you get a good number of growth. After 7 years, the city is getting that. The building has improved, the neighborhood has improved, the traffic to our business has improved. So we support the city council approving Urban Renewal to negotiate on TIF financing for this project. Thank you.
Thank you.
Nat Hagerman, 6455 West 31st Avenue. Nat Hagerman. Yeah, thank you. Just wanted to invoke the spirit of public funding past. All we have to do is say Cabela's, and I think this community has a stark reminder. So right now we have $25 million of infrastructure that services prairie dog homes. And I think we need to take a very serious look into the future and how would we feel if we have close to $8 million in improvements in maybe a level dirt field on that corner, but a dirt field nonetheless if everything goes south. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my
and I thank you for the opportunity to speak on this subject. It's been brought up before that sometimes things get done behind closed doors, and people have agendas that don't respond to the people who are the citizenry. And I don't like the fact that you told us we were rude when we clapped when Jerry outlined some things that were right at the heart of how we feel about this, how so many of us feel about this. You took hours going over their plan, which wasn't even part of the agenda, and then you tell us that we have to limit our remarks? How dare you? That wasn't pre-planned.
It was certainly effective.
I'm a teacher.
You may wonder why we have these rules is such an ugly word, but why we do it is really because we do want to be respectful.
Rules, please, ma'am, I'd like to stop you. These men had all the time in the world, but we were limited, so I don't know where you're going with that, but don't go.
Guess I won't go.
Okay. The blight as defined by urban renewal means an urban residential area where there's slums and buildings are falling down. These men are out to make a buck. I like you. I have nothing against you personally. But you don't live in Wheat Ridge. You don't know what we care about. Your plan is ugly. I taught art, fine art, architecture, and psychology. And you know, you're not creating an area where you can elevate people's moods and people's sense of the beautiful. It's really ugly. Other than that, we don't need a grocery store. We have plenty of them, and I think the word cannibalize is aptly put. We love the ones we have right now, and we are really looking forward to Sprouts. They have quality food. And Walmart, look it up. There's stuff about organics, and the big box organic stores aren't really organic. And that's probably what they're going to try to do to
Elizabeth,
compete.
I'm really half afraid to tell you your time's up.
Please do not go along with this tip.
Thank you, Elizabeth.
I'm Catherine Grant. That's my mom, actually. I live at 3881 Estes Street. I grew up in Wheat Ridge, and I love Wheat Ridge, and I think Wheat Ridge is so special. I even used some locations for a feature film that I shot here that's been in like 13 film festivals nationwide, and Wheat Ridge was so cool because it has these quaint locations. It's unique. It doesn't look like every other city in the whole country because it doesn't have these big, huge strip malls and things that are just pre-packaged that you just drop in that look like Aurora and look like the corner of Colfax and Wadsworth. This is a unique, special place, and I know some of it looks a little bit seedy or run down, but let's develop it in a cool way, a way that we can be proud of, a way that doesn't just feel like a bunch of developers coming in to exploit our citizenry and cannibalize our pre-existing stores that we already patronize and we already like. So, and I don't believe in, I don't think that Walmart needs a special money from Wheat Ridge citizens. They're actually the richest people in America, and they don't need that. They don't need our money. So, and we don't need any more chain restaurants, and we already have a bunch of fast food right on that corridor. It would be so great if we could make this special, something beautiful, something Wheat Ridge could actually be proud of. I live right down the street from there, and I really don't want to look at some big, huge, ugly strip mall. So, thanks.
Thank you. I think that's the limit of public comment tonight. And a motion is in order. Oh, we need to close the public hearing. Okay.
Okay, so based off of some of the discussions that we've had tonight, some of the comments that we've had tonight, which I think I've shared those as well. I don't have the motion that was in the packet. I have a little bit different motion. I want to just kind of, before I say this motion, kind of reiterate, I believe, what was heard, and hoping that I meet those needs through this motion, if you don't mind. One of the things that was talked about was some of the concerns of the tax dollars and where our tax dollars are going, and that we don't want it to go towards funding of corporate companies. In specific, I think that, you know, Walmart was brought up, but this whole thing is about the development of the entire corner and not just 40,000 square foot of a retail grocer Walmart. So this development is not about one retail site. It's also about actually over double the, over twice the amount, or another 40,000 square feet of retail space other than the grocer. There are concerns about cannibalism. There are concerns that I've heard about some of the planning and the transparency, and has the council seen enough of the plan to make a decision? And those are all things that, as a part of this beginning of this process, is still something that council would still be able to see. Our community will be able to see. Urban Renewal will be able to see. And, the other thing I heard was questions of funding, and does it need to be through our tax dollars? So with that being said, I do have a motion. So I'm going to start with that, and then it'll be open for discussion after that. So I move to approve resolution number 7-2015, a resolution approving a first amendment to Wadsworth Boulevard corridor redevelopment to allow the utilization of tax increment financing for the proposal project at the southwest corner of 38th and Wadsworth. I also direct staff to move forward with negotiations to include PIF, public improvement fees, as a part of this agreement. I further move that the final agreement be presented to and approved by City Council. And so I think with that motion, what I'm saying is we are going to look into other financing than the tax financing based off of some of the comments stated today. So that's the motion.
Do I have a second for that motion? Mr. Fitzgerald is seconding the motion.
Reread it?
Reread it.
So I move to approve resolution number 7-2015, a resolution approving a first amendment to the Wadsworth Boulevard corridor plan to allow the utilization of tax increment financing for the proposal project at the southwest corner of 38th and Wadsworth. I also direct staff to move forward with negotiations to include PIF, public improvement fees, as a part of this agreement. I further move that the final agreement be presented to and approved by City Council.
Discussion. Mr. DiTullio?
So I just wanted to explain this to the citizens. I guess what this motion is doing is that our sales tax is 3%, and the original proposal that the 3% would be used to fund this project with the TIF up to $7.8 million. What this motion is doing is taking into effect a public improvement fee on top of that 3%, which would be collected on that site, and that would be paid for if you went and shopped on that site, versus our sales tax. So what I would like to see is that the PIF would be in place over our sales tax, because then that's with the developer collecting that on top of the property. And I also like to see some participation from the retail anchors to help support this project if they really want to be there, that they pony up and put some funds into this project on the public improvements as well. So between the PIF and the public improvement money coming in from the developer and or the tenants, our sales tax remains as whole as possible. So I guess, and then this will be coming back to City Council for another approval eventually, as staff negotiates with the property owners and developer. Am I correct on that, Ms. Davis?
Yes.
Is that an amendment or just explaining? Okay, because it
Well, that
does
wasn't
have.
Ms. Davis's motion. Yeah, I heard that portion, but I didn't hear anything about making the tenants provide funding for this project. That's
That
what
was
you
a,
added.
that was a suggestion. I mentioned it earlier, and I'm suggesting it now, that hopefully these gentlemen could go to the developer, go to the, not the developer, the tenants, and say, would you be willing to pony up some dough to this project? Specifically the retail grocer. That's what I'm asking. I'm not making it part of the motion because I know that it's going to be a big fight if I did that. So I'm asking the developers to talk to the tenants and to the potential tenants and ask if they want to help pay for the 7.8 million rather than the taxpayers.
So the motion still stands as it was with the factors around the PIF, and the TIF could be can occur in a variety of ways as far as the tax consequences. You're not asking to amend the motion to add to develop the actual retailers to pay a part of the. All right, any further discussion on this particular motion or questions?
Madam Mayor.
Mr. Urban.
I guess my concern goes back to this issue of the current development as proposed, and it's not going to change, is that it provides for a retail grocer in an area where there's existing retail grocers directly across the street. And that just, to me, speaks to the ill-advised use of a TIF in this circumstance. If it was a retail anchor of some other sort, different from existing businesses within walking distance of the property, it would attract other people from around the Denver metro area to that spot, whereas here we're just transferring customers from one side of the street to the other, and that's my main concern.
Okay. Ms. Langworthy?
I just have I guess a quick question for Patrick. I know that about a month or two ago we had the woman who came and spoke about what really happens in retail, and what happened pre-recession and what has happened post-recession are different, and what our corridor will support and what people want aren't the same thing. And it's an unfortunate reality of kind of where we're at right now. What we would like to have wants to sit closer to a highway, and Wadsworth really isn't that kind of those numbers. But I guess I feel like people don't seem to understand or aren't clear on the time that you and Steve have put into this property, and it's not just this really quick, we've decided that this was the best thing for us, but you guys have spent years trying to find retailers to come to this site, and that this wasn't the first, this isn't our first and best offer. I guess like to just have you speak to that for a moment.
Well, yeah, you're correct, Ms. Langworthy. I think you're speaking to the market forces that dictate a lot of what happens in retail. And yes, you are correct. The city didn't call Walmart up and ask, do you want to come to the site? Developers bring those projects to us. We've worked before Quadrant Properties. We worked with at least 2 other developers, and they both were presenting Walmart also for the site because that's who was interested in the site. Other tenants have been looked at. Whole Foods looked at it for a minute, decided this wasn't the market. Sprouts looked at it, decided to go to Kipling Corridor. There's other tenants that can be looked at, but as I think Quadrant mentioned, Bob spoke about, there has to be a certain sales generation from the tenant to make the site work also. And there's a lot of tenants that don't match the sales generation that a grocer can bring. So I don't know if that answers your question.
I did. I think it's easy to think that this is just kind of the low-hanging fruit, and we take this and we get something developed and all of a sudden it solves our problems. That's not the case. As much as we would like to have a different retailer on that site, they're not coming to us. And so we work with what we have. And at this point, I think that what we're trying to do is develop the overall site. And this discussion isn't, even moving it forward doesn't guarantee that a contract will be reached. There's no guarantee that when it comes back to council, we're going to agree with what comes back to us. I think that this just starts our discussion and allows us to see what we can do. And like Jerry said, if there aren't other avenues of revenue. So I guess I just want to be clear about that.
Madam Mayor.
Just don't answer. Yeah.
You're
Okay.
still in the middle of discussion. What you need to do, Madam Chair, is ask if there's further discussion on the motion. Is there further discussion on the motion?
Are we done with discussion, and we had to say something?
I just wanted to reiterate that this will be coming back to City Council. This is one more shot for the developers and staff to work out something on a PIF, public improvement fee, versus the TIF, and possibly, it's not part of the motion, but I'm hoping the staff will go back to the developers, and the developers will go back to the tenants and look at them helping fund this. So while I'm going to vote to move this forward to have this further discussions, if this comes back and our TIF is being pillaged down to the 7.8 million, and if we're still giving away a lot of our tax increment and our sales tax and your tax money, I still can't support it. But I want to give them one more chance, because now they've heard where council is and where the community is on this financing.
Mr. Fitzgerald?
Just clarification, Councilwoman Davis, your motion did not make it exclusive that it be a PIF, right? It's a combination, is what you said.
Correct.
Right.
Any other questions or discussion?
Madam Mayor, I guess a question for the city attorney with respect to this motion. Does that limit the TIF clock to this specific property within the Wadsworth corridor redevelopment plan as it's being amended? We're making an amendment to the redevelopment plan as a substantial modification. The additional components in this this proposed motion, how do those fit into that as a substantial modification to the urban renewal plan?
It doesn't change the clock. I mean, you know, that's really the main action of the motion, is to set that clock going and allowing for a TIF agreement to be negotiated. What it adds to the process that isn't normally true is when you just merely trigger a TIF clock, then the Urban Renewal Authority is capable then of negotiating and voting on and approving a development agreement without coming to council. But instead, the motion has said we're initiating the clock, and however, the development agreement has to come back to the council. But in terms of starting the clock, it starts it, but it doesn't make it any greater or less a modification. The change in the motion, or what she's added to the motion, doesn't make it any greater or less a modification to the
But with
urban renewal
respect
plan.
to that change in approval from the Urban Renewal Authority to the City Council, does that then invalidate that in any way, because it's not the Urban Renewal Authority having the final say as is defined?
As I heard the motion, what it does is it adds a city council vote in addition to the urban renewal authorities. You know, you're adding an additional vote to the process, is what you're doing.
And how is that we added a vote to this process where we didn't add a vote to the process with respect to the development at 38th and Kipling?
Because on that project, you didn't add that additional condition. You merely authorized the use of TIF, which the Urban Renewal Authority then exercised. And here, you're authorizing the use of TIF contingent upon council approving whatever agreement is brought forward. If the council does that, and then it will also have to go to the Urban Renewal Authority. That's the difference. I think it's the right question to ask, but that's the answer.
Thank you.
Are we ready to cast our votes? Please poll the council.
Motion carries 7-1 with Councilmember Urban voting no. And Ms. Davis, would you get me a copy of your motion?
Okay. That item is done. We can move on. Do we need any? I think we're good. Let's move on to,
Can you pass that to the clerk?
what is this?
Can you call for order?
What is this?
Can we please have order?
Please be respectful for the rest of the work that has to be done tonight. Item number 4. Is that what you want?
It's up to you. You need to decide what to do.
Councilmember Wooden.
Item number 4.
Let's go forward with these.
Should I go ahead?
Madam Mayor, I would call item number 4. These are ordinances on first reading, which really just require a motion and a second. As you know, there's no testimony on ordinances on first reading.
Got it.
So it'd be appropriate to call item number 4.
So go ahead. Should I go ahead?
Please clear the room quietly.
I wouldn't necessarily clear the room.
God.
Okay, I'm going to read Council Bill Number 04-2015, an ordinance approving the rezoning of property located at 5130 Parfett Street from Planned Industrial Development PID and Agriculture 1 A1 to Industrial Employment IE, case number WZ-14-15 Parfett Storage. At issue, the applicant is requesting approval of a zone change from Planned Industrial Development and Agriculture A1 to Industrial Employment IE for property located at 5130 Parfett Street. The proposed rezoning area includes 2 parcels, the total size of which is approximately 3.48 acres. The purpose of the zone change is to expand possible uses for the property, including the option of constructing a mini warehouse storage facility. At this time, the applicant does not have specific plans for improvements to the site. If the property is redeveloped in the future under the proposed IE zoning, an administrative site plan review would be required to confirm that proposed development meets the standards of the Industrial Employment District and the Architectural and Site Design Manual. Is a motion in the?
Yes, this is for first reading, so
Okay.
motion is fine.
I move to approve Council Bill Number 04-2015, an ordinance approving the rezoning of property located at 5130 Parfett Street from Planned Industrial Development and Agriculture 1 to Industrial Employment on first reading, order it published, public hearing set for Monday, March 9, 2015 at 7 p.m. in the City Council chambers, and that it take effect 15 days after final publication.
Can I
Is a
have a
motion
second?
in? Second.
Please poll the council.
Motion carries 8-0.
Councilmember Fitzgerald. Item number 6.
5.
Did I miss one?
I have.
Oh, yes. Thank you.
They flipped because he didn't want to do this. I thought item 6.
We did a switch.
Item 6 is the. Oh, okay. I see what we're doing. Okay. All right.
There you go.
I'd like to introduce agenda item number 5, which is Council Bill number 05-2015, an ordinance adopting a new section 16-160 of the Wheatridge Code of Laws requiring the payment of sex offender fees at the time of registration. This is first reading. Is a motion order.
A motion is in order.
I move to approve Council Bill number 05-2015, an ordinance approving a new section 16-160 of the Wheatridge Code of Laws requiring the payment of sex offender fees at the time of registration on first reading, ordered up published, public hearing set for Monday, February 23rd at 7 p.m. in the City Council chambers, and that it take effect 15 days after final publication.
May I have a second?
Second.
Please cast your vote. Discussion. Oh, sorry. Do we need discussion? Of course we do. You want to just discuss. Sorry.
I'm going to vote against this. The public good, I think, in this case is just to have people registered. And it's not about the money. And we only had 2 people who didn't pay their re-registration fee of $25. So we lost a whopping $50. And for the 15 or so people who didn't register, who didn't pay their initial registration fee of $75, we lost about $1,000. But if you can imagine somebody who just got out of jail coming to registered as he's required to by law, he probably doesn't have $75. And I don't see any point in further criminalizing that person, especially since it's not going to go anywhere. It's an empty threat because the Colorado legislature last year made it illegal to send someone to jail for offenses of this level. So all we're trying to do is threaten people, and in the end, I don't think the public good is served.
Thank you. This is first reading, so please go ahead and poll the council.
Motion carries 7-1 with Councilmember Fitzgerald voting no.
Now, Councilmember Fitzgerald, read item number 6.
Council Bill 06-2015, an ordinance amending section 16-156 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning interference with public officers performing their duties. This is an ordinance for first reading. The issue is the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws, section 16-156, defines and prohibits several acts that constitute interference with public officers performing their duties. One subsection prohibits verbally abusing or threatening officers. Another section prohibits refusing to provide one's identifying information to an officer when requested. This ordinance modifies these sections to be consistent with the current state of constitutional law. Is a motion in order?
Yes.
I move to approve Council Bill 06-2015, an ordinance amending section 16-156 of the Wheat Ridge Code of Laws concerning interference with public officers performing their duties on first reading, order it published, public hearing set for Monday, February 23rd, 2015 at 7 p.m. in the City Council chambers, and that it take effect 15 days after final publication.
Second.
Seconded by Mr. Pond. Please poll the council.
Motion carries 8-0.
Councilmember Langworthy, item number 7.
Thank you, Mayor. Resolution number 11-2015, a resolution amending an intergovernmental agreement with the Urban Drainage and Flood Control District and the Regional Transportation District for the construction of drainage and flood control improvements for the Arvada Channel between Miller Street and Oak Street, and the approval of a supplemental budget appropriation in the amount of $350,000. At issue, an intergovernmental agreement was approved on December 8, 2014 between the Urban Drainage and Flood Control District and the Regional Transportation District and the city concerning the construction of storm sewer proposed to serve the Gold Line commuter rail system and surrounding area. This proposed amendment of the IGA will specifically commit additional city funding for the project in the amount of $350,000. The Urban Drainage and Flood Control District is contributing an additional $150,000. This project will provide the last segment necessary to complete the drainage outfall, which serves areas between the Target and Arvada and the future Ward Road Rail Station. Yes, just a moment.
I didn't ask if we have any staff.
We'll take Marcus here to answer any questions that you may have.
I move to approve resolution number 11-2015, a resolution amending an intergovernmental agreement with the Urban Drainage and Flood Control District and the Regional Transportation District for the construction of drainage and flood control improvements for the Arvada Channel between Miller Street and Oak Street, and the approval of a supplemental budget appropriation in the amount of $350,000.
Second.
I didn't ask if there was any questions, but this will be as well a good a time. Is there discussion or questions of staff? Mark is here. Seeing none, let's go ahead and cast our vote.
Motion carries 8-0. I'd just like to say, Mr. Westberg did such a great job at the study session. They don't have any questions.
All right, we're on our last item. It's 5 to 11.
You may be able to get there. Let's.
Can we do it? All right,
well,
let's go for it.
if we get to 11 and have to take a motion, we will, but let's use the time productively.
Councilmember Starker, would you please read the last item?
Item number 8, motion to appoint elected officials to outside agencies. At issue on this is the 2015 outside agency committee appointments. Is a motion in order?
Do we need to motion, do each one of these individually?
I would say a
can make
further move, further move, further move.
You can make a motion for the whole slate.
Okay, please make the motion.
I move to appoint Councilmember Starker to the Colorado Municipal League Policy Committee Board with Councilmember Zachary Urban appointed as an alternate. I move to appoint Mayor Jay to the Dr. Cog, a council representative, with Councilmember George Pond as an alternate. I move to appoint Ken Johnstone or designated staff member to the Community Development Advisory Committee with Councilmember Tim Fitzgerald as an alternate. I move to appoint Councilmember Bud Starker to the Jefferson Economic Council. I move to appoint Councilmember George Pond to the Jefferson County Transportation Action and Advocacy Group. I move to appoint Councilmember Jerry DiTullio to the Police Seizure Fund. I move to appoint Councilmember Christy Davis to the West Chamber with Councilmember Jerry DiTullio as an alternate. I move to appoint Councilmember Genevieve Wooden as the Jefferson County School Liaison.
Second.
Please cast your vote.
Motion carries 8-0.
That takes care of the business portion of our meeting. Do we have any matters that we need to discuss? Nope.
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 Madam Mayor, I move to adjourn based on the time of the evening.
Thank you very much. Meeting is adjourned.
I have to get a second.
Well, okay, let's have a second.
Second.
You don't even need that. He's going to be on the parking lot for us.